The flag. Everyone rise for the salute to the flag, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty, and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Nutter?
Here.
Mayor Samaras?
Here.
Mr. Dakota?
Here.
Ms. Doherty?
Here.
Mr. Hoey?
Here.
Mr. Lay?
Here.
Ms. Martin?
Here.
7 present.
All right. I believe we have a spotlight in excellence on the Stockluster School. Is that correct? All right. Who's in charge of the program,
Yes,
please?
Robin. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Jim Cardacy, the principal at the Stocklosa Middle School, is here to speak briefly about the SOAR program, the SOAR MA program, which is a 2-year program designated to help low-income children and families save for post-secondary education and training. So I'd like to invite Jim Cardacy up to the podium.
No, you need the mic. Is it on? Just press the button. Should be a green button. Watch this. It's on. There, go ahead.
All right, thank you everyone for their time, and I appreciate you having us. So the program that we've launched, we started last December with assistance from the State Treasurer's Office. A lot of people had their hands in this throughout the city. Kevin Coughlin, Ratty Mom, Nikki Songus, everyone has kind of chipped in. We're still in the infancy stage of rolling the entire program out. So we are going to need some help as far as kind of penetrating the different communities. Right now, we've had three different parent nights to try to get all the staff involved and the parents involved in the multiculturals to try to utilize our entire education process, so we can get as many participants as possible. So it's what the program kind of stands for. It's SOAR Mass. It's based on the 529 plans, and the idea is to get 7th and 8th graders matriculated into the college savings plans early to get them invested, and then hopefully it'll increase enrollment in college. Does anyone have any questions on that? No? Yes, sir. No, right now they actually just opened up to the 6th grade students. It's 6th and 7th grade, and it's currently for the Stocklosa students, but there's currently no limit. There's a $50 match up to $400. Okay, thank you very much.
Hey, thank you for the presentation. All right. I'd like the approval of the minutes of the regularly scheduled Lowell School Committee meeting of Wednesday, February 28th, 2018. Motion?
Move to approve.
Thank you by Mr. Hoey, seconded by Mr. Dakota. All right, we're ready to go into motions for permission to enter, but we have 3 reports tonight from reports of the superintendent that require presentations. And I know the people that are here to make the presentations would like to stay through the entire meeting and, gather in what's going on in the Lowell School Department. But because of the weather, or the potential of the weather, I would ask permission to allow the 3 groups to be before us at this time. To your approval. Second. Approval by Ms. Doherty and seconded by Ms. Martin. All right, the first program we have is the Dropout Prevention and Recovery Program report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to be able to present this year's Dropout
prevention data, and as well as our attendance efforts throughout the district. I'll move that in a second. Before I turn it over to the presenters for this evening, I'd be remiss if I didn't thank a few people. Heather Ganley, who's with us this evening, is our attendance officer. Stephanie Day, our present attendance monitor and former graduation mentor for the program last year, along with Nadia Zamora, who couldn't be here this evening. Additionally, former attendance monitor Rosa Segura Morales, and our whole dropout prevention team that is district-wide, especially all of our school-based teams, for their diligent efforts to support our students, because they are the ones, all of these people made it happen. So I will turn it over to Heather Ganley at this time to present to you the dropout prevention data.
You'll need to be at a mic.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the school committee. Again, my name is Heather Ganley, and I would like to share with you a dropout prevention and recovery data presentation, which also includes Lowell Public Schools' recently released dropout data. Experts in the field of education, as well as research, suggest that dropping out is but a final stage in a dynamic and cumulative process of disengagement from school. A common formula consists of what is called the ABCs of disengagement. Chronic absenteeism is a major piece of the formula, typically the first red flag, and chronic absences are also often a precursor for behavioral issues or course failure. They're often interconnected. Monitoring attendance for Lowell Public Schools. How do we do that? What is chronic absence? Chronic absence refers to both unexcused and excused absences. And when we look at collective, we're looking at a number of 10% or more. So in a school year, that would be 18 absences in a year. And again, that's, unexcused and excused. We're really looking at seat time. In addition to truancy, Lowell Public Schools really starting to look, and we have in the last 3 years, been closely monitoring our chronic absence rate. So what is Lowell Public Schools' chronic absence rate? Here is a graph for you to see. You can see it's slowly been declining in the chronic absence rate, which is a great trend to see. And it's been, the dedication of all of our school staff and people involved in this whole process. As you notice, there's a slight uptick in the year 16-17, last year's chronic absence rate. And I just want to tell you that this was, we think, in part attributed to the Career Academy gaining an innovation status last year. With that came a separation from Lowell High School. And as an independent school, leading to an adjustment in their seat time. We have requested a waiver on this, and as a matter of fact, we have a site visit from the Department of Ed actually this month. So we're hoping that this is going to be, show in our next year's data. But our goal is to always reduce chronic absence rate, and therefore putting us on track to continue to lower our dropout rate now and going in the future.
Thank you for letting me interrupt you for a second. I just saw a couple of puzzled faces from the committee members, and I want to just articulate that when the Career Academy, when they changed over their status, and you voted on their innovation status, they also changed over their status on seat time. They do not have the same requirement for students to be in their seats as do other students in the Lowell Public Schools. However, because of the timing and everything, the waiver did not get submitted in time for the 16-17 data. So what's reflected isn't truly accurate for the school because it's showing that they have a very, very high, extremely high chronic absence rate, but when in fact that many of the students are doing online learning at home. So we're working with the state right now, as Heather said, and I won't go on about that, and we're hoping that we will get that approval within the month.
How does Lowell Public Schools compare with other districts for chronic absence rate? This is our, I don't know if you can see all of the districts that are in there. We have a lot of work to do still, but we're going in the right direction. Dropout data. This is our recently released dropout data from the Department of Ed. Here's our history, and this is, again, the annual dropout rate, so it's year to year. Based on this data, Lowell High School has hit a huge milestone with another historically low annual dropout rate of 1.2. That's 40 students who dropped out. How do we compare to other districts in this? And there we are, again, moving in the right direction.
Below the state average.
Absolutely. The
Way below.
green line on the state average. Next is a cohort 2017 four-year graduation rate. Totally different and opposite of our dropout rate. This is another historical milestone for Lowell High School, that being this cohort 2017 graduated in 4 years, and it's actually the first time that we've been in the 80s.
Just before you move on, do we, and it may be later in the report, I'll apologize, but how does this compare when we include a 5-year graduation?
Interestingly, I thought I was going to add that, but we thought that was too many.
Sorry.
Our 5-year
And I would ask the question, I apologize. But
our 5-year cohort, or I guess I would say it's the adjusted cohort, decreased, which must be, when our annual dropout rate's decreasing, we're seeing our cohort increase for 4 years. And then we saw our 5-year cohort decrease slightly. Mm-hmm. So more kids are graduating, I'd say, in 4 years than 5. But, given the fact that there are so many different, students involved in our system, that's wonderful either way, 4 or 5. But great question. How do we compare? Again, in the right directions. As we see, we're in the 80s, so we're moving down to the 90s. Dropout prevention initiatives. You all have a packet, I believe, that Janine Durkin got ready for you, of all of the complete report of the initiatives within the schools and throughout the district. It's probably 4 or 5 pages long. Tonight, I want to share with you 2 of them that really contributed to our data here. The first one really impacted our data, and this was the DESE Mass Grant Promising Practice grant from the Department of Ed. And this is where we hired 2 graduation mentors. We're happy to receive this, and with the grant money, we designed and implemented a data-driven program to reach our high school students, two categories, 1 that have dropped out and 2 that were potentially dropping out, high risk. We created an intake referral process that looked at each student's data, credits, grades, MCAS scores, why they dropped out, pretty much put the full picture together of the students so that our mentors have that as a tool when they're meeting with these students and trying to either bring them into our school, back into school, and or help them get into another alternative sort of section, maybe a HiSET or GED program, Job Corps as well. The mentors worked very close with our house deans, and the results were amazing. So The outcomes, I didn't realize how small this was going to be, but here they are, and I'm going to walk you quickly through them. Essentially, the mentors worked with 202 Lowell High School students, conducted over 250 home visits, multiple times to students. And in the little blurbs there are 66 of our students that were at high risk of dropping out remained enrolled, which is really amazing. 7 students dropped out and re-enrolled. 7 of them re-enrolled after the mentors interacted and contacted and did home visits and follow-up visits. 11 of the students that actually dropped out that were not enrolled in anything enrolled into a GED or a high-step program and passed the test. So not just enrolled, but also passed, so they're not considered dropouts either. 45 students were confirmed to have moved into another district and or left the state. This is a very tricky one because if we don't know where a student is or does not show up at Lowell High and we have no data, they are considered a dropout. So this is a very costly part and ensuring that we have contact with all of them. 36 students from a previous year, 15-16, that had dropped out were not involved in anything. The mentors were able to get them enrolled into a GED program. We don't know yet what the status is if they've passed, but we will be checking up on them. Ultimately, 37 of their students that they worked with, I know we had 40 dropouts, but 37 students of the 202 that they worked with were actual dropouts, but that also kind of shows you how close they were on that data after 202 students. And we know that those 37 dropouts are students that we're going to look forward to enrolling into a GED program again this year. Maybe they'll be ready. The success of this program, besides the work of the graduation mentors, is also attributed to the leadership and guidance of Deputy Superintendent Janine Durkin. She really is the mastermind behind a lot of this programming here. What have we learned? We learned that risk indicators are connected to the ABCs of disengagement and dropout. High school engagement is more challenging, but we know from our data that it can be done. And we know that early engagement efforts and students being connected to our families, our schools being connected to our families and students can, in fact, reduce the high-risk indicators leading to dropout. We can stop a revolving door of high-risk indicators that can lead to dropping out of school is ultimately the goal. Our last initiative, I put it last because we have to show you a video. This is sort of a coming attraction. We've been working on this all year. Again, with guidance and help from Janine Durkin here. And this is just a little clip of what we're doing, and it's starting this June, and we're hoping that this becomes a tradition here at Lowell High. And it's a graduation walk with our seniors returning to their elementary schools and modeling for younger students the importance of staying in school and graduating. It's also an important opportunity for us to celebrate their milestone. So this is going to take place in June, and it's a little clip that we have for you. Let's see here. Okay. That, and I have to get the arrow on there. There. I have to sign in. Okay.
Yeah.
You're asking for trouble, that's right.
So at this time, we'd ask Head of School Marianne Bastide to come forward and just share a few of the specific initiatives at Lowell High School that really impacted the dropout rate and the attendance data.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and school committee members, for letting me speak for a brief few minutes. Before I get started, I really want to say that on behalf of Lowell High School, I think the effort to get the dropout rate really was due to a large part on Brian Martin's behalf. I know he worked very, very hard to get to that number, and I know that the deans and Dr. Howe and Dave Robinson all worked to get that number to where it is, along with, of course, direction and guidance from Deputy Superintendent, and of course Heather, where Heather went to. She had a big impact on that. So I just want to say thank you to all of them. So I get the chance to talk about it, but it really happened before I got here. So thank you to all of them. I'm going to be very brief because there's a narrative in your slides. You have all this information. I'm just going to highlight a few things. Heather talked about a lot of these things, but I don't think you have these slides. For some reason, they didn't get into your package, but I would be very happy to send it along to you. So some things that we do to promote strong attendance and compliance is a lot of data collection. We spend a lot of time collecting. Oh, thank you, Janine. I totally forgot to move the slides. So promoting strong attendance compliance. We collect a lot of data, early intervention. We use the house model and lots of collaboration and additional supports. Some of the things that we do for early data collection, and I have to give a big shout out to Director Jill Rothschild for all the work that she does at the Freshman Academy. There's a lot of work that gets done before the students even enter the Freshman Academy. The director gathers information on chronic absenteeism. She consolidates reviews and invites students to come to the Freshman Academy Summer Compass Program. About 66 students were invited last August to go to that. And then additional students were invited the week before school started. So that was a big shout out. It's really important, that early intervention, especially before they even get to the high school, to make sure that they feel welcomed and that we are going to support them and do everything we can to help them have a successful 4 years. Some things that the house deans do, they also meet with the Freshman Academy director as the students are coming in as 10th graders and 9th grade repeaters. They meet with especially with families that are at high risk. Some other interventions that happen is the repeaters go into a smaller, a specific advisory. I think all of you know that we have an advisory program at the high school, and those repeaters go into a small advisory for increased support, and students are closely monitored throughout the year. Some additional interventions, ongoing, I mean, some of this is happening every single day, is at the house model. We have a dean, a guidance, a social worker, a clerk, and a clerk schedule that are constantly, daily checking attendance, making phone calls. They meet once a week and do a case management review. There are weekly, like I said, team meetings, and they check progress. They do home visits. They have attendance hearings. Lots of this is a big focus of their attention. I will tell you that of the deans. They spend a lot of time trying to make sure we're doing every possible thing that we can do to try to get students to come to school, and not only come to school, but give them support when they get here, because it's one thing to get them in the door, but it's another thing to keep them in the door. So that's something that they work very hard on. The house teams collaborate. They look at progress reports and failure intervention reports. They look at teacher concerns, notifications. I'm going very quickly over this because I know some of this is repetitive and we don't have a lot of time tonight. Some other things that the house deans do to collaborate, they collaborate with special ed, advisory teachers, the district McKinney-Vento homeless assistance liaisons, and they always daily, sometimes minute by minute, collaborate with each other and try to talk through, hey, I'm having this problem, what can we do? Try to help each other. We meet weekly and go over some of our biggest concerns with students, and that's something, like I said, we're constantly doing. Some additional supports, academic supports, we can modify a student's schedule if we need to do that, if we think that's in the best interest of a student, and we think if we modify that student's schedule and they can start coming in at 8:30, quarter of 9, as opposed to 7:55, and we think that'll work and that'll get the student to school, we will do that on occasion. We work with them on career pathway programs, try to really hook them into those programs and get them excited about something, and hopefully that helps them want to come to school. We do a lot of work with credit recovery, and the Library Media Center is bustling before and after school with tutoring. Like I said, we also have the advisory program, and right now we have approximately 100 advisories in the high school. And then lastly, there's just a few charts which Heather already talked about, which just giving a shout out to Charlie Pulio, who did these charts for me, and it just shows the record low, actually, of 1.2% for the dropout rate. The next slide, the new Lowell High School record of 92.6 attendance rate as reported by the state. And then lastly, the student suspensions, that's exciting information, is that it's trending, it's reducing, and especially the trend line, the in-school trend line and the out-of-school trend line is reducing, which I think that's good news as well. Graduation rates are going up, which Heather talked about. I know I'm going through this very fast, but if you have any questions, you can certainly give me a call, come visit. I can answer questions now if you want. I can also send you the PowerPoint.
Any questions? Mr. Hoy? No.
I don't have any questions. I have to make a comment. When it comes to the dropout rate, it's very close to my heart. I know we don't have enough trade schools around the area. I think Lowell High is doing a fabulous job. But I do have to say it's when leadership, I love teachers. Everybody knows I said that I think they all deserve $104,000 a year. But when it comes to leadership, principals to me are everything. And when I say the freshman academy, I'm blown away that we never hear her complain. You know that has to be a hard place to work and to lead. House masters, I'm sorry I'm using that word, but I don't know what we call them now. Deans, I'm sorry. I was allowed to shadow Mrs. Haley. Last year it was for about an hour. I seen people coming in with babies. She was holding babies. She's with just really down-to-earth type people, and I think that's why our numbers are like they are. I want to mention one more thing. Principals, to me, I've been in every school twice now, and I've seen some great principals and leadership, and to me, the boss is the key. And I have to say this, and I hope I don't embarrass the woman, but this morning I was getting a coffee with Mrs. Durkin, and the first thing she said to me, she said, "Oh, Bob, they walked out of the high school today for 17 minutes, and they handled themselves so beautiful." I goes, "Well, they might have done beautiful, but see the two girls in the corner sitting on the couch? They're from Lowell High School." Well, guess what Mrs. Durkin did? She brought them to school, okay? And that's a true story. I had to bring it up, but that's the type of leadership that I like to see. Thank you very much.
Any further, Mr. Dakota?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think we can only shower kudos on the extra mile that all of the staff at the high school, that most people aren't aware of how much work goes into, the creativity that goes into, and the initiatives that they institute to keep kids in school and get them to graduate. Kudos to the staff, big time.
Right.
Big time. One of the best kept secrets in the city.
Yeah, I would like to add, it's like you said, it's not just the leadership and the deans and all of us trying to work on this, because once the students get here, it's the teachers that keep them in the classroom and the teachers that keep them coming. So a big credit to them, too.
Mr. Doherty,
Thank you.
you have something to say?
I'd just like to add one thing. I was thrilled when we beat the state average a couple of years ago, right? And then we maintained it. And now we went from 1.8 dropout rate to 1.2, well below the state. And you know, everybody in this room knows that every student that graduates, and if they get a GED, that's good too, that's just as well. But that student has such a wider opportunity to be contributing members of our community than if they are high school dropouts. So this is a huge, and I'm sure the staff and the leaders who are working behind the scenes every day must get such a sense of gratitude and just making a difference that really matters. Because I know it is for me just sitting here. Congratulations, I think it does definitely deserve an applause. It's amazing.
Mr. Lay?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also want to say that, Ms. Bastide, earlier you mentioned Mr. Brian. You give credit to Ms. Brian Martin and other staff at your school to make this happen, but you didn't give yourself any credit. I just want to say that I have the walk through the high school. I talk to staff and students. They have talked about good things about you. So I just want to hope that you continue to do good things for our kids at the high school. Thank you.
I think I can speak for Mr. Dakota and myself. I think you must say that we do really understand how much effort has to go into making this program a success. So I have to commend all of you. I mean, it's no question. This is something that I don't think people fully realize what it is to take a major urban high school and do this in a major urban high school. As school committee people, these are the efforts we must support. And Lowell will just become better and a better place. Thank you. Ms. Martin?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. You know, I certainly join in the accolades on this achievement. I think it is pretty dramatic when you look at the numbers, particularly around the dropout rate. You can see that this, you know, trending. You look at the trends, obviously, over time. We've been trending with the state. You know, it's been going down statewide. This is the first year where I think we actually put some distance between ourselves and the state. I mean, a 0.1% difference is still great, but this year we're looking at something, I think, even more substantive, so that's really encouraging, and I think it certainly does speak to the commitment, you know, from top to bottom, and the number of individuals that have been involved in making this happen, so I think that that's really very, very impressive and certainly speaks well for our students. I also just want to take a moment and say, to get a report that is this substantive, that has this kind of information in it, I think the presentations looked great, which was great, and I appreciate that. But I think it really is great to have this kind of communication where we actually see the numbers, we actually see the what has gone into making a success story here in the Lowell Public Schools. And I think when we have an opportunity to really highlight that in this way, it really speaks well for the work that's going on in our district. And I applaud the team that put this information together, because I think it gave us a very comprehensive view of why this was successful, and put it right out here in the open for all of us to share, not only with the school committee, but with our full school community. Thank you.
But going along with what you've said, Ms. Martin, I would ask the superintendent to see if he can take information like that, and whether it's putting it on the school site, you know, or the city site, but I think we have to make sure that more of our constituents see this type of information, okay? That's Mr. Dakota.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it should go in the Lowell Sun as well.
That was next.
Something nice to talk about Lowell High School.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Superintendent?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to repeat what everybody said. I think the credit goes to the staff, and I want to personally thank them, because I know we worked really hard and to make that happen. And what we do in central office is really just to support you. You guys do the real hard work, the teachers, staff of the high school. But I also want to remind everybody, and I know that my colleague here just reminded me of it, is that part of that success was our ability to fund some summer initiatives for the high school and for the student services to help reduce the dropout. And unfortunately, these funds are getting, rarer and rarer, and we want to make sure that when we come back to you and the budget, you remember this, and you remember how important it is to fund those summer initiatives, because these are the ones that make the good story that we're looking at today. Thank you all. Thank you for your efforts.
Okay, Mr. Superintendent, the next report is mental health support needs. Could you introduce that, sir?
Yes, this is a report in response to school committee member Jackie Doherty, and she requested to have us look at the support services that are needed throughout the district, what's presently in place, and then recommendations for going further. So we do have a fairly lengthy presentation, but I do know that there are a lot of people who want to present tonight, so I'll defer to Ms. Doherty.
Go ahead, Ms. Doherty.
Thank you, Your Honor, and thank you so much for putting this report together in such a timely fashion. It is quite dense with a lot of really important information. What I'd like to do, if there's no objection, is refer this report to the Student Services Subcommittee. The whole report is online, so people can look at it. We'll just poll members, get a date in the next couple of weeks to do a deeper dive into some of it. And if I could just ask for some information to be included when you mention the number of social workers that we have in the city and the number of students who are partaking of those services, could you also include information about what that workload looks like for those social workers, the ratio of social workers to the students that they're serving? I didn't see that in the report, and I think that would be helpful, because part of what we need to do is look at, as we go forward and look at the budget, how can we do more to support the mental health of our students? So I make that in the form of a motion.
Yes, I need a second. Mr. Dakota? Sorry. Oh, you're all set. Motion passed. All right. Next, we have a revised MSBA education plan. Mr. Superintendent?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And we have the head of school, interim head of school, Mary Ann Bustard here. We have the architects represented. And I think I'm going to turn it over to them.
I was just going to introduce him, so that's fine. So Robert Bell from Perkins Eastman has been working very hard with his team, and Dr. Howe has been working closely with him, and I've been learning as much as I can, and we're trying to get things moving forward. So he's going to be doing that presentation, but I want to just say thank you so much for everything he's done to get us to this next place. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Ann. Mr. Mayor, members of the school committee, I'm here to provide a brief overview of where we are, particularly as it relates to the Mass School Building Authority and the project, as well as seeking approval of a revised ed program and space summary. As you all are aware, certainly the project is being revisited. We are looking at the a revised scope and timeline. We've also received MSBA comments and a bit of review that I'll go over briefly. And I will highlight what has changed in the educational program since it was last approved by this committee, as well as the companion space summary. The two of those combined really set the goals, the vision, and the entire program for the school renovation and revitalization project. So just to begin with, what has changed with the scope, certainly we are now on a new site, the existing school site, effectively. So as a result, the MSBA has certainly asked that a range of options be brought forward for review. We have been working with the school building committee, and we have 3 variations that are still under review. One of those happens to be new construction, which is a requirement of the MSBA to bring forward and as a comparative study. We also have renovation on the existing site and renovation on expanded site. What has changed with the scope of the project is also that the pool has been removed from the program. So whether renovation or new construction, the pool itself is not part of the program. And that was a requirement that flushed out through the MSBA and several rounds of discussions and negotiations. So we're moving forward with the refinements, and effectively, those are the changes that we've made to the educational program and space summary. I'll just go over quickly. As far as the timeline goes, we have, at the end of this month, we'll be providing an update to the school building committee and the city council. The end of next month, the end of April, we'll be providing the same, and we'll also be showing refinements of cost, as well as seeking the selection of a preferred single option. Ultimately, the city council would vote May 1st, and we would be submitting our report, updated report, on May 9th to the state, so that they can prepare for their board meeting on June 27th. So what we've been hearing from the MSBA, comments from the last time we submitted the report, as well as continued dialogue, we have found that in general, much of the program they are in fact accepting or continues to be in alignment with what they're looking for. That includes the entire category of core academic spaces. It includes art and music. It includes vocational and technology spaces with a few small exceptions. Those exceptions are a school store, a bank, the TV studio, which are under further review. So they have not been rejected, but we understand them to be a critical part of the program, and it is part of the MSBA's process to find things that they may not contribute funds to. It does not mean that they're not requirements for the school program. It's just a matter of the MSBA looking statewide at similar schools and programs and trying to maintain equity. So as I said, the school store, the bank, and the TV studio is something that we've seen on other projects that they may or may not provide funds for. As far as health and physical education, they have, most of those spaces are approved with a small exception of athletic secretary and bursar and conference space. It's a very small amount of space, but it's outside of what they normally see. So otherwise, they are accepting everything in health and physical education. They've accepted the media center, food service, and a number of programs that are listed in what they call the other category. So although there are a lot of very unique things happening in Lowell, the state has accepted many of them. There are just a few. They include the Community Health Center and Katie's Closet that continue to be under review. The diagram that you see up here shows the 2 floor levels of what would be a new gymnasium, large gymnasium and PE spaces. At one point until recently, the MSBA had many questions about whether they would allow the net effect of what appears to be a field house, because their regulations prohibit field houses. But as we've been continuing discussions and making the case very strongly that Lowell is very unique, the size of the school and the commitment to make it one school, one community is very strong here. In many cities, you would see 2 or 3 high schools, and so you would see 2 or 3 gymnasiums, effectively, large spaces. So we have been successful to this point. The MSBA has agreed that we can, in fact, or at least they'll continue to review, but they accept to this point that we are co-locating 6 gymnasium spaces, which you can see in the top diagram, alongside ROTC space, which is built into that area, with an adjacency of special education adaptive PE. And the reason we've done this, at first they were not going to accept it. They are agreeing that this is acceptable. It provides, by co-locating with gymnasium space, we can get the effect of a track and field and get a lot more flexibility and opportunity for the students and for the community of Lowell. So we are continuing down this path. It's actually very good news that to this point that's accepted. As far as spaces under review, it's special education space, and that's quite common. The MSBA defers to the DESE, Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, for all special education spaces. There is some admin and guidance space under review, And I'll go over in the space summary why and what some of those are, as well as custodial and maintenance space. As far as spaces rejected formally, the only ones that have come up are a little bit of overage in the auditorium. And this may be revisited now because the MSBA has a cap on auditorium space. But because we have a renovated auditorium in this effectively revised set of options, the expectation is that it's existing space and would be accepted. So changes to the educational program. Everyone should have received in their packet the actual education program with highlights of the changes, as well as the space summary. And effectively, we've done just a handful of things here. We've removed all references to the pool, or clarified that the MSBA will not allow a pool within the program. That occurs on pages 26, 27, and 41 of the ED program. We also have provided additional descriptions for the adaptive PE and sensory motor space. Those are the spaces we have located next to gymnasium space to get that effective field house dimensional performance. And we've clarified what exactly happens within those special education spaces. So you'll see those on page 29 and 30 of the ED program. We further clarified the ROTC classrooms, and that's on page 33. So that describes, again, we've got some co-location with the gymnasium spaces. And we provided additional descriptions for Katie's Closet and the Community Health Center, because as the only spaces in the other category that the MSBA is still reviewing that they may not provide funds for, we're trying to clarify and make the strong case for why they're so important to the school. The space summary, I won't go into great detail, but I will tell you an overview. This is the state's form, and on the far left, it lists all the spaces and types of spaces that exist. We have the existing conditions plugged into the first several rows of columns. The middle column shows what we're proposing, and the far right column shows what the MSBA defaults are. We have shared our version of this document with the state to highlight. Off to the far right, you'll see light yellow or orange highlights. These show spaces that in the MSBA's formulas just don't scale for the size of school that Lowell is. And if I just use a small example, if they allow a mailroom for teachers of 100 square feet, that works just fine for 500 student high school, 1,000 student high school, maybe even a 2,000 student high school. It does not work for a 3,500 student high school. So part of what we have done is to bring this to the attention of the MSBA and continue to make our case that this is not asking for more than is deserved, but that it really needs to scale with the size of the school. So if I just race through a few of the categories here, you can see up to the right-hand column, there'll be an increasing number of highlights of spaces that are not scaled. So we continue to make this case. Nothing has changed in the space summary since it was last approved, except for the removal of the pool. So again, what we're seeking here tonight is just a reaffirmation of the revised ED program and the space summary that have the pool removed and have further clarifications to help make the case for the educational program.
Thank you. Discussion? Questions? Well, thank you for the report. But I think one important statement that you did make is there is no model for a high school this size, correct, in the state?
This is the second largest high school in the state. There is one other that's larger.
But when I talk about models, there's usually a model for a 600-student school, 1,200, by the state standards, correct?
Yeah, exactly. The state standards just don't come up to this size.
That's the difficulty in planning. So thank you. Again, thank you very much. Mr. Nutt?
Do we need to vote on this?
Well, we do. Actually, I was going to bundle it at the end. Okay. We'll take it at the end, all right? Thank you. You're all set. Thank you. All right, we're going to go back to the original schedule. All right, we have permission to enter contracts. Any questions in this area? All right, I need a motion to approve the permission to enter by, thank you, by Counselor Dakota, School Committee Person Dakota, and seconded by Mr. Hoey. Roll call?
Mr. Nutter?
Yes.
Mayor Samaras?
Yes.
Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Hoey?
Yes.
Mr. Lay?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
7 yeas approved.
Next, we have unfinished business, head of school update. Mr. Superintendent?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Previously, before we canceled the meeting, we had included a little information about the search committee that was put together. It was a search committee that we followed, the HR really put together, following the policy, the school committee policy, with respect to how the composition of that school committee. Since then, we also had I received a report from Mrs. Mulligan about it. They had scheduled their interviews, as you see the schedule there and the one that she submitted earlier, but the head of school positions was essentially posted since February 15, and he closed on March 6, 2018. There were a total of 13 candidates that applied for the position. A search panel, as presented earlier, was put together. The search panel then went to interview these candidates, and on Monday, March 12, 2018, the search panel met, and after interviewing the candidates, presented 3 finalists for the superintendent to select one final one. While there is no policy or guidance on neither from the school committee nor the state on how the superintendent selects the finalists, I followed the same example I did last year, which gets the help and assistance of my 3 assistants. So I put together a committee with my 3 assistants, with the head of the union, UTL, our largest union, and the city manager, the mayor. Did I forget anybody else? Yeah, and myself. So we were a total of 7, and we interviewed the 3 finalists, and it was the recommendation of the team to me to select the final position. And I'm pleased to announce that the appointment of Marianne Bustede as the new head of school. Congratulations, Marianne. And following that, I understand that Ms. Bustede is now in discussion with our attorney, Mr. Hall, to finalize her contract, which will be hopefully ratified soon. Thank you.
Any discussion? Ms. Martin?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Certainly welcome to Ms. Bastida as our new head of school at Lowell High School. My questions, I want to be clear about process. And I apologize because it's certainly my failing that I wasn't able to attend the rescheduled meeting 2 weeks ago when this was initially discussed. So I apologize if I'm bringing up things that were discussed at that prior meeting, but as you know, I wasn't able to attend it. I did watch the meeting, which can be a disconcerting process, I'll let you all know. I did have just a couple questions on the way that this had kind of, the way the search had been laid out. I appreciate seeing these dates here. I know from our initial conversations, which now of course go back to December, my understanding from the last meeting was that, Mr. Superintendent, your plan had been that you had the conversation with your team, and the decision was made that waiting until a February-March timeframe was the most effective choice to conduct this search. Is that true?
On February 15 or 16, when it was posted, and we had followed not only the team, but as you know, we had asked Mrs. Mulligan to take over the HR, and it was her recommendation that was the best timing for a posting.
So when we began this process in December, at what point did you decide that February was the best time to do it?
I don't think there was any time that we necessarily decided February we're going to do it. It was a time, at that point, we were still collecting a lot of information, talking to various the various groups, that when we talk to the groups, we not only, at that point, we had set out, my initial goal was to talk to the groups and giving me an opinion of the current interim person, but also in discussing with the group, I also got a chance to understand from the various group, what is it that they're really looking into such a leader, into the leader of the school. So we followed all of that, and then we discussed it amongst our team, and followed the advice not only of my team, but particularly the advice of the HR person as to what would be the best person.
So that was the second time you had gone out to do kind of a review of parents and teachers and others to get that
It was
information?
actually a continuation of the.
Okay. Because I know you had done it initially and come back with a
We
recommendation.
hadn't finished that. Initially, when we did, we had done only the teachers, and when we came back with the results of the surveys, was only the teachers and the administrators, and then later on, we rescheduled a forum with the parents as well as the students.
Okay. So, and I agree with you, because that was, as I recall it, you had gone through that process with the teachers, come back, recommended Ms. Bastide. The committee had asked you to conduct a search. At that point, you went back and did the initial reviews with parents and some of the other, constituencies. And then that brought us to our December meeting, when again you made the recommendation, and then this committee had requested that you conduct a search, an actual search for the position.
Yeah, let me just explain one thing for you, if I may.
You may.
And one of the things, yeah, I don't remember the timelines exactly, but I know we talked various times. I did check with, as I told you I would, and I did check with the state. I did check with your own association, Massachusetts of Association School Committees, their attorney. I checked with also our attorney of MASS, and it is very clear that the policy that we have, it's a policy, one of the process of screening. The search, whether we conduct a search or do not conduct a search, when we conduct a search, or when do we post it, that is under the prerogative of the superintendent and his team. So I think we did everything by the book. We made sure, and it was clearly told to me by actually your own attorney, your own MASC, that even if I had only one candidate that I selected myself and not do a search, while I was obviously able to do that, we still had to put that person through the screening committee so they can go through the process. And I think we tried to do that, and we went exactly by the policy to the letter as to the members that compose this team and the representation on this team. And we did the search. We didn't have to do the search, but we did the search because I think it's, once you go that way, might as well do a search. And we turned it over to HR, and HR, I think, did a fairly good job. I asked them to do it as fast as they can, the process, and they turned over the 3 finalists to us. And again, I didn't want to do the decision by myself. I wanted to have the recommendation of others that will be interacting with this person quite frequently. And I'm happy where we are, that we've been able to conclude that.
So I think that as we move forward, because certainly we have some additional positions that we're going to be filling. Unfortunately, we're under the gun now that we're already at the end of March for the most part. And I would certainly make a motion. I know that my colleague is trying to pull together a meeting of the policy subcommittee, that I think we should be revising our policies to ensure that we have a process that we're all comfortable with. I don't doubt that you adhere to the letter of the policies. I'm more concerned about the spirit, and I think we need to build our policies to be more perhaps strident, to ensure that we're getting the kind of search that we, I think, did our best to articulate in December, but obviously were not successful in having have happened. I know from past experience, most explicitly from your past experience, that the requirement in terms of when the season is for people who are professionals in this field who are looking for, whether it's superintendencies or principalships, that the requirements is that you're looking at an early December timeframe to get your postings out. Again, I know that clearly because it was part of your initial employment agreement. You were really clear about what the season was to get the most qualified people, and that you wanted to ensure that you would always have that option. I know we're in a contract now, so it's different, but that certainly stayed with me when the actual season is to conduct these. I also think as we move forward, we can look at the way we're populating the committee. I think the individuals that were included in this should all be there, and I think that's great. I think there are some other representatives that could be included. I know I've certainly been approached by some other union membership that would like to be part of these types of searches, and I think that that might be something we want to build into the structure. And I think that, again, as we go through this process, we're going to be filling other principal positions. Again, we're already deep in the season, and I think that it would be to our benefit if we really do dig into what our hiring policies are as a committee, so that as the policy subcommittee meets, we'll be able to be really clear, so that there won't be this kind of confusion of what this committee requires in terms of a professional search and how it will adhere to our policies. We need to make sure that both those things are in alignment.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, just to make sure that you know this, we do have only one principalship opening next year. That had already, the Robinson, that had already been posted long ago and had been already closed. They've had several applicants and they had formed their search committee. The exact same guidelines of this by HR, and I understand that they're, I think, right now interviewing all the committee, and they should be giving me a slate of hopefully 3 finalists sometimes the end of this week or next week. So that's the only position we have, and they've already publicized this some time ago and already collected that, because that's the only one that we have as an interim, and the sitting interim is neither wants to stay nor is he interested to stay. So we opened it up quite a while ago. With respect to the policy, I encourage you very, very strongly, because this is a really fine area. I want to remind everybody, this is why the Reform Act came about. It's to draw the line between what is the responsibility of the superintendent with respect to HR and where can the school committee get involved with. So I would encourage you, highly encourage you, to get somebody from MASC when you draw such policies so that they may guide you. Because hearing you just now when you're talking about establishing searches, because I know that would be one area that they will probably most likely advise you to stick to the screening process, but stay away from the searches, because that's not under the purview of the school committee. But having said that, I think it's just my advice that get somebody in the room. They do not charge when they come to advise you, because you're a member and we pay for your membership. And I think their input is very valuable.
I would certainly welcome that expertise. I mean, I certainly know that the line is always drawn between policy in the way that we conduct a search versus the ultimate decision, which lies with the superintendent, and that has always been the case since ed reform. So I think having someone be able to attend, and we can defer to the administration to arrange for that once we arrange the policy subcommittee to invite MASC so that they can speak with us directly about how we can craft this. Thank you.
We'll try to line that up for sometime in April after our next policy subcommittee on recess that we'll be having soon.
All right. Any further discussion? Okay. I need a motion to accept and place on file by Mr. Nutter and seconded by Ms. Martin. Motion passes. Thank you. All right, now, at this point, we have memorials. We have a memorial for Bessie Bolianitis, mother of Lowell High School teacher Charles Bolianitis. And we also have a memorial for Penna Penn, a Lowell High School student. Please dim the chambers. May they rest in peace. All right, we're now into the motion section of this meeting. First motion by School Committee Person Nutter. School Committee look into creating a mandatory citywide recess policy for all elementary and middle school students. I need a second by Ms. Doherty. Thank you. Mr. Nutter?
I believe we have several people registered to speak. I was approached by a group of concerned educators, parents, to look at our recess policy. I know last year Jackie Doherty had requested a report that the superintendent had submitted, and we have recess policies that vary from school to school, and I think what we're looking for is for some consistency. So I'd like to, I know Darcy Boyle has some information that she'd like to distribute to the committee, and we have several speakers to talk on the subject.
Do we have the names of the speakers? Oh. Please call out the speakers.
Mickey Dumont.
Good evening. Mayor
Name-
Samaras, Superintendent.
Name and address. You know the
How
drill.
could I forget that? After all this time. Mickey Dumont, 62 Wynwood Road, Lowell, Mass.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'll give you a hard time, you know. that.
Mayor Samaras, Superintendent Kilfawi, school committee members, central office members. Most of you know I'm a retired elementary level teacher, and I'm also the grandparent to 4 Lowell Public School students. I'm also a proud member of the Lowell Education Justice Alliance, which is a grassroots organization of local parents, teachers, school staff, and community members whose primary goal is to help in the promotion of a public school system, like ours, that is equitable, joyful, educational, and inspiring. Since one of our first working projects has been to follow Massachusetts Recess Bill 235, which would have allowed districts to count time spent at recess toward the state-required structured learning time, I'm happy to have the opportunity tonight to speak in support of School Committee Member Jerry Nutter's Motion 7.1, which requests the school committee to look into creating a mandatory citywide recess policy for all elementary and middle schools. I speak before you tonight because for the first 25 years of my teaching career at the elementary level, my students were afforded 2 15-minute recess breaks each day. That was also a shorter school day, I might add, than what it is today. Due to the Ed Reform Act of 1993, members of the Department of Education, none of whom apparently were classroom practitioners, decided to place heavy emphasis on students' quote, time on task. The district, in response to DESE's then created Learning Time Regulation Guide, developed in 1994, responded by eliminating the morning recess in our elementary and middle schools. I think it's safe to say that there were no classroom practitioners involved in that decision either. These decisions made by people not in the classroom meant that for the last 10 years of my career, 25 plus 10, decisions were made by people outside the classroom, and my students were afforded only 1 15-minute recess break per day. I'm here to tell you that I can state unequivocally that the impact on students losing half of their recess time was profound. We were fortunate to have school committee member Jackie Doherty request a report on the lunch and recess times at all district schools, because the report clearly showed that there is tremendous inequity across the district with regard to student lunch and recess availability. Some schools have 0 recess time, some have 10 minutes, some have up to 25 minutes. Totally inequitable. I have but one regret about my teaching career in Lowell Public Schools, and that is that I didn't push back hard enough when myriad mandates and dictates came into our schools in the name of ed reform from all levels, local, state, and federal. That said, I'm here tonight to urge this committee to push back as hard as you can against the multiple state and federal mandates that are crushing our students, teachers, staff, and schools. Our Lager Group has created a packet of extraordinary research-based evidence for you to peruse that cites the benefits of more recess, not less, in order to promote better classroom behavior, less fidgeting, stronger concentration and focus, Research has shown that through play, students learn better communication skills, cooperation, problem solving, coping, and self-control. I'd like to end with 2 quotes taken from children's television host Fred Rogers, who most of us know as Mr. Rogers. Any members here familiar with Mr. Rogers? Yes. His birthday actually was yesterday, and he would have been 90. And he was just the champion for children, as far as I'm concerned. One of his quotes was, "When we treat children's play as seriously as it deserves, we are helping them feel the joy that's to be found in the creative spirit. It's the things we play with and the people who help us play that make a great difference in our lives." The other very well-known quote was, "Play is often talked about as if it were a relief from serious learning. But for children, play is serious learning. Play is really the work of childhood." I urge all of you to move this issue to subcommittee to allow time for more stakeholders to weigh in on this request. Don't be like me. Push back for our kids and know that the state of Massachusetts is not as interested in student creativity as they are in student outcomes. Other districts have been successful
Thank
in...
you. You know, we have a time limit, so can you sum up, please?
I have about 10 words left.
Okay. Gotcha.
Jeez, Mayor.
Listen,
I know.
I follow the rules. I taught well.
Jeez. Other districts have been, I backed up a little bit so we don't lose the train of thought. Other districts have been successful in allowing adequate recess time for their students. We should do the same for ours. I have a 6-year-old grandson at home tonight who is begging for this to be resolved. Every time he comes over to my house for a play date, "Nana, has anything been done about the recess yet?" He's in 1st grade. And I say, "No, we're still working on it." He says, "Let me know when you get there, because next I want to talk to you about the writing."
Thank you.
Thank you.
But we're gonna have to have some classes about when the mayor, gives you a time limit. Thank you. Next.
Chavi Sanoon.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you for your time tonight. My name is Chavi Sinuan, 41 Rita Street, Lowell, Massachusetts. I'm a parent with a kid in the Pawtucketville Memorial School, and I also have relatives over at the Maury School, the Wang, and also the Daly School, and Lowell High School, so all over public school. I'm here tonight because I am in support of equitable recess policy district-wide for Lowell, and for fair recess policy as well. I believe that no matter what age we are, we have a basic human need to take breaks. And as you can all empathize, when we don't get enough breaks, we can't function well, we can't think, and so breaks are actually a good way for us to heal from all the other hard work that we actually have to do. And for young people, breaks and play, like Mickey had mentioned, is really what looks like play to us is actually real learning to them. And we actually have to keep that in mind. And I believe that this basic human need to rest is a basic human right. 30 minutes of recess, no less, should be required for our students. I believe that the school system is in a position to support this human right through encouragement, through teaching and learning, and through policies such as this. I also believe that this recess policy can offer a clearer direction for all schools, because right now, all the different times and recesses that the different schools have is not equitable throughout, and so schools are implementing it in really different ways, and therefore the students are the one who aren't getting the support that they need through this. And so by having this clearer picture, it frees up the schools to think about other innovative solutions to learning and supporting students in their struggles. So for example, having the support from as the reports that we had earlier about the dropout rates really decreasing because of the support. So this is actually early engagement, early intervention. By giving the young people free time to play and more time to rest, there will be more cooperation. There will be increased physical health and mental health as well. And research shows that adequate recess time addresses the physical and mental health needs of our students. Physical play helps a student learn social skills and problem-solving skills, as we all know. And research has also shown a direct link between how social skills help meet our learning requirements. It really helps free up the mental space for students to actually be able to process and take in what they're learning inside the classrooms during instructional time. And lastly, children are part of the most vulnerable population, and just because they don't have the legal agency right now, it doesn't mean that we or policies should ignore their inherent human agencies over their own bodies and minds. And as parents, teachers, school administrators, let's support them instead. And when doubts, challenges, or barriers come to mind when we think about implementing this research-based policy, let's use the power of empathy to move things forward and to think creatively how we can make this happen. And by that I mean, we can look back at how when we were younger, wouldn't it be great, or was there a time when we actually really wanted a group of adults backing them and advocating for them in this way? And this is an opportunity for you as a committee to really set really great examples for generations to come, and also be the leader in this work of creating a district-wide policy for an urban school district. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Ashley Pizzuto.
Hi, I'm Ashley Pizzuti, 219 Jackson Street in Lowell, and this is Evelyn Pizzuti, my 6-year-old daughter. Hi, everyone. She's a first grader at the McAuliffe, which we now have recently found out gets the least recess time out of any of the schools in the district. On paper, it is 10 minutes. However, the times that I have volunteered in her classroom, it's really closer to 6 or 7 minutes of actual playtime, because in that 10 minutes, you have the kids lining up with their coats to go outside, and then they have to again line up to come back inside, so that time period counts for that. Their playground is located across the street from their school, which they rarely actually get to go to. Her recess time, for most days when it's warm enough to go outside, is the teacher opening the back door of the school, and they get to go out and run around for 8 minutes, which is equivalent to letting a bunch of first graders out into a dog run. There's no structure for them to climb on, there's no toys for them to play on, and then they're shuttled back into the classroom and told to sit and learn. I'm lucky that she's a very good kid, but witnessing other children in her classroom, it's very clear, especially towards the afternoon, they're gone. They don't have the focus. Those kids, if you've ever hung out with a 6-year-old, they are endless amounts of energy, and they need that release. And everybody talks about they need breaks. They need, recess isn't just about breaks. That's social interactions that are learning from each other. We're watching our nation in turmoil over what's happening in all these school shooters, and, we're putting all of these insane demands for education and structure and test scores on these children, but at the same time, we're not allowing them to learn the social structures of society and community and humanity by being there and helping each other and having someone fall on the playground and going to their help. Every minute of their day at school is structured. And having recess allows them to learn in an environment that isn't structured. It's overseen by adults, but it's allowing the children to kind of have that space and freedom to learn what they need to do to be a human in our society. So, yeah, we're concerned. We'd really like to see the McAuliffe, as well as the rest of the schools, bump that up to at least 30 minutes. And, that's all I really have to say.
Your daughter's name again is? Your daughter's name?
Evelyn.
Evelyn, do you want more recess?
You want more recess?
Just ask an expert,
Just looking at the report that the superintendent had submitted at Ms. Doherty's request, The Green Elch, the Lincoln, the McAvenue, the Riley, the Shaughnessy all have 20 minutes. The Bailey and the Washington and the STEM are at 17. Maury is at 18. Merkland and the Pine School grades 3 to 8 are at 15, and the McAuliffe is 10. We do have a great variety of time. I don't believe that if we institute this, that we need to add time to the schools, that it's going to cost us any money to do this. I think we can come up with an appropriate policy that will, work for everyone. And so I would recommend that we refer this to a policy subcommittee meeting on Monday, April 2nd at 6 o'clock in the conference room on the 5th floor at the school administration building.
Motion to do that? I need a second, Mr. Hoy. Thank you. Mr. Nutter, would you, the head of the union is here. Mr. Georges, would you want him to, excuse me. We have the head of the union here, Mr. Georges. Would you want him to?
Oh, absolutely.
Mr. Georges, you've got 2 minutes, okay? I allowed the others, but not you.
I owe you one, Bill. Yeah, I mean, this just makes sense. Kids need a break. Obviously, they're energized, a little downtime, but it's also time for teachers and paraprofessionals to observe their behavior when they interact with each other. Social, emotional development is extremely important. So much of this stuff is based upon test scores and this drive to improve achievement scores. And I think we all agree that simply looking at test scores is not a justifiable way to determine the quality of a child's experience or their education in a school district. We've been working, as you know, with a group of other districts across the state to look at an alternative assessment process that includes many more factors than simple test scores. Test scores are not a good barometer of whether or not. In fact, when the district or a state takes over an individual school because of low-performing test scores, very often the parents try to protect and keep that school open because they know what their children's experience is within that school that may not be quantified simply by a test score. And with kids, social emotional development is extremely important, particularly during these times. We know the catastrophes that are out there and have happened. We know that I just remember when earlier in my career we had homeroom, we had study hall, we had an opportunity for high school kids, because I was a high school teacher, to develop close and warm relationships with adults. And that time was not wasted time. It was time that was productive time where a teacher might be able to flag a problem a child was having because they got to know them. The race is too fast. And we're leaving, and very often as a union president, I hear this thing all the time about how the schools are not there to serve the kids, not to serve the adults. I hear that. But how is it serving the kids to get them swept up in a performance race that forgets their primary needs of connecting with adults? The recreation or the reestablishment of recess is a step in the right direction. Teachers and paras, again, can sort of monitor, and administrators and special educators can monitor the social emotional development of a child through play. It's constructive time, it's not wasted time. Let's not follow the path of being on task all the time. It's not fair to the kids, it's not fair to the educators. It takes the joy out of learning.
Thank you, Mr. Georges.
Thanks. Thank you.
I mean, during your time, though, didn't they use candles when they were lighting the classroom? Listen, it's been a long time. I mean, he was head of the union, Mr. Nutt, first of all, the April 2nd date, is that okay with the rest of the, okay, thank you, just wanted to poll it. Thank you. All in favor?
Wait a minute, Ms. Durkin has a...
Oh.
Just potentially a request to move that out at least a week so that we have an opportunity to meet with our school leaders And we also have the State Department of Education coming in for the coordinated program review next week, so that April 2nd would be a bit of a challenge to try to get something really thoughtful and to be able to communicate with our leaders. Would a week out be considerable?
Hang on, we're checking. Jackie says okay, Connie?
So April 9th?
Monday, April 9th. Okay. Nope. Yeah, you don't have
We
to.
asked the office to poll. We don't need to do it on the floor. Let's, if the
We'll come up with a
superintendent
new
could
date.
poll
Thank
for
you.
a date, that would be great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All in favor? I thought we did that. Okay. Next motion by School Committee Person Nutter. Administration provide a report on how many students per Lowell school enter into Lowell High School Lyceum and how many test for entry. Need a second? By Ms. Doherty, thank you. Mr. Nutter?
This actually came to me from a parent whose child went to the Sullivan School and was an A-plus student. And when they took the Lyceum test, was very disappointed in the child's math score. And so they wanted to know, do we keep records? Can we see how many different kids from all the schools apply and how many make it, to see if there is a problem with any particular school and the math? She was very concerned about that, so I told her I would bring it forward.
That's a legitimate question. Thank you. All in favor? Any more discussion? Mr. Hoey?
Yes, I'd like to, Mrs. Bastide, if she's here, maybe she can answer it, or leader of curriculum. I felt last year I brought up a discussion. My granddaughter is in the Latin Lyceum, and I know there seem to be a few kids, maybe more than I would like, dropping out of the Latin Lyceum, and I don't have the reasons why, but I thought last year one of the reasons I looked at was during the testing week for MCAST, that they weren't being told, slack off on the homework during that week, when the high honor kids were told, relax on the homework. I'm just bringing up one issue, but I actually feel one of the biggest problems with the Latin Lyceum, and it's something I love, and I want to hear from this lady in a minute, is I was on the school committee when Mr. Topia created this, and then I felt personally that there were some people at the high school that didn't want it. I think they've backed off now and they're not pushing as hard. But just Latin alone, I hear more issues about Latin than anything, and I know it's an issue. I know Latin is needed, but I think it's one of the subjects that constantly hurts those kids that drop out of the Latin Lyceum. So I just hope with our new head of high school that we have something going to draw more people toward it, because I think it's a great program. And if you don't mind maybe touching it, or do you know something or an opinion about it, I'd like to hear it.
Thank you, Mr. Hoey. So the Latin Lyceum is new to me. We didn't have this in the high school I was at before, so when I got here and heard about it, I actually read about it beforehand, before I came, and I was very impressed. I was excited to hear that we had a program for students that, it really focused on 2 cohorts for those students where they felt like they could really work together through the 4 years. And every student needs something different. I mean, our at-risk students need one thing, our students that are high honor students need something else, and I think this was a good opportunity to address those students that needed something a little bit smaller learning community. So I was very impressed with it. I was involved with the, in October, we had an open house. We did a great job of introducing the students to the Freshman Academy. We talked about the Lyceum program. It was for parents too, and I had the opportunity to learn a lot that night. I know Amy McLeod did a lot of the presenting that night. I was very impressed with what we had to offer. We had a really good turnout. That was actually on a Sunday. It was a Sunday afternoon, and we had a full house for that Sunday afternoon. We did have, for the class of 2022, which would be incoming freshmen this year, we had 149 students, which I think is pretty impressive, that tested. And out of the 149, we had 52 accepted. So it's about 1/3 were accepted into the Latin Lyceum. We had a night, it was about a couple weeks ago, where we had an acceptance night. So all the parents, all the 52 students were invited to come that evening, and it was a chance for us to get a little deeper into the Latin Lyceum. I got a chance to talk directly with some of those parents. What a great group of parents. They were so happy to be there, so happy to learn about the Lyceum. Our current Lyceum students did a tour with the potential students coming in, and I was very impressed, because we asked them if they wanted to sign up right away that night. They could, but they had about 3 weeks to get back to us, and they were coming up one after another, signing up right away. So I was excited by that. But I do think, Mr. Hoey, I think we can do more. I think we do advertise for the Lyceum a couple times in October. We have a lot of competition, but I think that we can do more, and I think it's a great program. This year, we're looking at probably 2 cohorts again, so that's 2 classrooms of students. I apologize, but I don't have the actual graduation numbers from last year, but from what I recall, I believe there were a couple of drop-offs. Usually there's maybe 5% dropout, but I can get more information on that to help you out. Does that help answer a little bit?
Yeah, and thank you very much. And the reason why I want, Jerry, it's a great motion. And what I love about it is, personally, when you're part of something 20 years ago that someone created, like Buildtopia, and I was on the school committee with them, and then next year I can be on the stage when my daughter graduates from it, it's kind of exciting for me. But I think for children, we have to think about the children that want to do real hard work, because I know they do 4 or 5 hours of homework every night, and my granddaughter does that all weekend long. So to me, it's incredible. Maybe I was wrong, but I felt there was some people, and I don't know who, that were working against it, and I'm glad to hear. I know Ms. Desmond has a son in it too. If you had anything you'd like to say, Ms. Desmond, I'd like to hear you, maybe a little bit, if you think we're moving in the right direction for the Latin Lyceum. And I'm sorry that I'm delaying time here, but...
My son actually is not in the Lyceum.
Okay.
Sorry. But he is at Lowell High School, and he is in the high level courses. But I do agree with Mrs. Bastide. We are looking at ways of improving the advertisement for the program. We are in competition with lots of other opportunities for kids at the high school level, and we're going to continue to advertise for that program we're going to try to increase the advertisement in a more robust way.
Thank you.
Mr. Dakota, then Ms.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe, and whenever I've had occasion to talk to parents about when they would question about the Lyceum, and that I explained to them that we in our Lowell public school system have a program that offers everything that you can get at a Groton Academy, at a Westford Academy, at Phillips Academy, and they don't have to pay a penny to send their kids here. And further, we offer way more in extracurricular for all of those kids, way more than those private schools can offer. So it's a win-win all around for our community, for our children, and the parents as well. So to me, the Lyceum is real bargain for us. It really is. And I'm so proud of the fact that we have that here at the Lowell High School.
Ms. Doherty.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to go back to the motion. I think that it's very important that we get data. We look at statistics so that we can see, is this, are we making progress? Are there areas for improvement? Are there things we want to look at? So if the maker of the motion would be okay with a friendly amendment, I'd like to add, what interests me about this idea of looking at, and I know we collect this data, we have it, how many students, take the test, and what schools do they come from, how many are
We have that
accepted.
data.
Right, so if we go back, let's say 5 years, I'm not trying to be onerous in the work, but if we go back at least 3 to 5 years so that we can see, is there a trend? And are we getting kids from some schools and not as many from others? And then I would also like to include, what are the dropout rates? And is there a trend over that same period of time? Because I think there's always been hearsay, discussions, you hear it through the grapevine, well, it's too much work, or, they're judged more harshly than the high honors kids. I mean, there's been, and I know, Mayor Samaras, you're aware of those conversations. They go back a few years. I'm not trying to drag up all that. I'm just saying, but if we take a trend of 3 to 5 years, look at the number of students who are coming in, who are taking the test and passing it, and where are they coming from, and the number of students who stay with the program, and is that trending up, that more students are staying and graduating from the Lyceum program, or is it trending down? It just might be an indicator of other areas we'd want to look at. So is that a long-winded, you know what I'm just trying to add?
Yeah, I understand what you're trying to add. Do we have, is that data easily
You have
available?
that, you should have that data.
So we should be able to do like a 3 to 5 years work, so it's not, I don't want to add a bunch of time to anybody's. If we have it, that would be great.
But that would enable you to see the trend.
That would be fine.
If you'd allow me to make a statement from the podium, when you disaggregate the scores of Lyceum students, Lowell High School is one of the top high schools in the state, okay? And it matches Boston Latin, other schools, because of those scores. Originally, it was, when this was designed, it was Mr. Topia, Kendall Wallace, and myself. They came to me and they talked about the thing that they were afraid of was brain drain, in a sense, from Lowell High School. They were afraid of top students not having an opportunity. We seem to be doing work for those in need, but we did not offer programs for those that wanted to excel. We came up with this concept. I would suggest, Mrs. Superintendent, perhaps, not in the form of a motion, but we should discuss this, and maybe this could be part of the discussion, is a review of what has happened over the years. The question about Latin has always been brought up, whether we should have Latin or not. But the issue is that there were many people who were concerned. I'll tell you what the biggest concern was for at least the first 10 years, probably still is. There are a number of students that go to school, they get all A's, they're 2 or 3 friends, and they've been together from K to 8. Then they take the exam to be into the Lyceum, and one makes it and the other 2 don't, or 2 of the 3 make it and 1 doesn't. It breaks up, in a sense, it doesn't really break up friendships, but it does. I mean, people all of a sudden, this is their first separation from the norm that anybody knows. So there's a lot to be discussed. There's a lot of good about the Lyceum. I've always commended the school committee for supporting the Lyceum. And Steve, you have a task before you, but the thing is to bring it to another level. It's been very successful, but I think what everybody's talking about is, okay, can we make it even better, more accessible, but still maintain the standards that it has? Yes.
I'm just going to start by saying the Latin Lyceum program is an absolutely amazing program. I was in it for freshman year, and I can attest to some of the dropout questions because I actually am a Lyceum dropout. And a lot of kids don't drop out because the work is too hard or they don't want to do it. They just want more options because the program seemed kind of restrictive. And that's why,
Correct.
and that's why I ended up dropping out. Personally, I think Latin is the most amazing subject ever. I continued with it even after I dropped out, and it was my favorite subject. But a lot of students aren't like that, so you might not want to go by my opinion. But
they should.
Yeah. But it really is an amazing program. The only thing is kind of the really regimented schedule, which when you're signing up for Lyceum, you know you're signing up for that. So I'm not sure like what improvements could be made there. But part of it also is like the social restrictions and breaking up friends that I wanted to be able to meet more people and branch out. So that's part of the reason I dropped out. And I know a lot of other students feel the same way, but I have a baby sister actually she's not a baby, she's a freshman. But she's in Lyceum right now, and they're in normal freshman advisories, not with like just Lyceum kids. And she said that that's been really great with like integrating them with like the normal freshmen, if that makes sense. That was a bad word to use, I'm sorry. But that's been a really great addition to the program. And yeah, I think it's a great program. Thank you.
No, Ms. Marsden really brought up actually one of the most important points, that a lot of the students, the reason for dropout is opportunity, because you have so many other programs, whether it's the TV studio. I mean, I would have students, why have you dropped out? Well, I want to be in the Samaras. I want to go to such and such school. TV is very important to me. I'd rather prefer to do this. And those are the things. But I think it's a program that's worth a challenge, to work on. Good motion. Thank you.
Thank you.
All in favor? Okay. Thank you. Next motion by school committee person Nutter, for administration to set up a meeting with the policy subcommittee to establish a reasonable policy for responding to school committee votes and motions. A second by Ms. Doherty. Mr. Nutter?
Again, it's pretty self-explanatory. I know from watching and now from being on this end, you put in a motion and, sometimes it takes time. Not in my case, thank you. But sometimes it takes time to get a response. And I just think we should come up with, a fair policy to, again, go back to the word communication, so that, a school committee member can expect that, we will get an answer in a period of time, and work with the administration on what a reasonable period of time. Sometimes, if it's about building a Lyceum program, obviously that's going to take time. Or to get an audit done is going to take time. But, on some of our other motions, I just think it's something that we need to just look at and work with the administration.
Okay. Mr. Nutter, could I also bring up at the point, I've been on both sides. Okay, so I think what we're looking for is you want certain things in a time, we all want things in a timely manner, but at the same time, the administration needs time to do their work and what have you. So I think this is a good motion perhaps to make us think about when we make a motion, is it really worthwhile? Are we taxing the administration? Or, I think my thing is, I wanted to give a report that was worthwhile. And that report would then be useful to the members of the school committee. But I think sometimes we get maybe a little carried away on timing or what have you. It's on both sides. So I think maybe if you can work on that premise of trying to work for both sides, I'd appreciate that. Mr. Hoey?
Yeah, I like the motion. I think, after listening to you, Mayor, I think if we made a friendly amendment to that motion, that the motion contains like a time limit, meaning when you make your motion, if you said, I'd like to get that back in 2 weeks, and that way there, he could come and say to me, I don't believe I can do it in 2 weeks. I could do it in a month, or I could do it in 2 months. Maybe just adding a time to that with your motion.
I think negotiation is always
Okay,
good.
yeah.
Mr. Superintendent, would you?
Yeah, I do. Thank you. I understand what you and I talked about this on the phone. I understand where you're coming from. I just see it really, really complicated to come any policy, because I believe the response time is always going to be a matter of the motion itself. There was a motion today made by one school committee member, Ms. Martin, that requested within a week. I think that's reasonable, because the work that is asked, it is not going to take more than a week. It's just a matter of collecting quotes. So it depends on the motion. The other thing that we need to keep in mind is the people who write most of the times for these motions, you're looking at them. That's it. It's the 4 people. And they often sometimes have to go back to their staff And not all the time they can get their staff to sit down and write, because remember, their staff, for the most part, are union members who have specific job descriptions. You can't just go in them and say, you're going to spend 2-3 hours this week writing a motion. So it ends up falling most of the time on Ms. Durkin, Ms. Desmond, and Mr. Frisch, and then they'll bring the reports to me, and I have to look at the reports and approve them, and sometimes edit, and we do that. So you have to keep that in mind, that we don't really have anybody dedicated to write these. And sometimes, as the mayor said, you know, when I came on board on July 1st in 2015, the first motion report that we call it the quarterly report I looked at, it was incredible. There were motions there since 2000, 4 or 5 years prior. And so we did a really great effort. Yeah, we really worked really hard to liquidate them, and we tried to liquidate as many we sat down for hours and hours and hours to liquidate them, and then we try to eliminate most of them, and then magically they just build up again. Now the quarterly report that we brought it down to about a couple pages is now back to like 10 pages. So I say what the mayor was talking about, I think it's really important that a lot of times we put motions that are simply can be information that you can ask on the floor and we'll give it to you right away. It doesn't really amount to writing a report about it. And sometimes information, as I said, can be gotten in 1 week, simple one, and sometimes it takes a lot more. And so I do appreciate the need for the time, and I think it's a great thing to look at that, because it also gives us, if you look at the new quarterly reports that I just reconfigured a few weeks ago, I added in it, like expected time. We try to do that. So on our own initiative, we were trying to come up with expected time, and even then it was hard sometimes to fit it within the schedule. I can tell you right now, nobody's going to work on this motion coming the next 2 weeks. No motion. I can assure you. We have the state that is occupying us with the CPR. Every one of us, every single minute that we have free, we're involved with the CPR. And we have a lot of things. So there are times where we can, times we can't. So I do appreciate any understanding, whether it's put in the form of a motion amendment, as Mr. Hoey pointed out, or anything else, that let's look at the time when we ask for this, and let's be reasonable about it.
We're going to a subcommittee. Can we may have 5 inches of snow out there before we leave.
It's not snowing. I just showed the map because she hasn't started her homework yet. So we have to keep this meeting moving so she can get home and do it.
Well, I'm also hoping for a delay, so Dr. Kalfawi.
You didn't help.
Sorry.
Not that we're working together over here or anything.
Are you all set, Mr.? Okay, thank you. All right, next motion by Mr. Nutter. School committee consider the following additional items to be added to the agenda. Old business and announcements. Need a second? By Ms. Martin.
And just in point of explanation, the old business, this can actually go with the previous motion, because, I don't know about anybody else, but if my boss asked me for some reports, and once a quarter I gave him a list of reports that I still owe him, I don't think he'd be too happy. So, I think to keep the motions under old business alive on the agenda, I'm not a big fan of the quarterly report. And as far as the adding the announcements, I have so far had the privilege of being a judge at the Knowledge Bowl, doing the reading at the Lincoln School and at the Pine Arts School when they did Read Across America Day. We have so many good things going on in our school systems, and we don't talk about them, in my opinion, enough. So being able to promote, like the fall show that's coming up with the at the high school, or Trish Neary has one up at the Wang School, I believe, this week. Being able to promote those kind of events, as the city council has an announcements on, we don't have to go through every one, but the ability to highlight a couple, I think, would be a good thing to keep our staff and our kids, to show them that we do pay attention and we're proud of what they do.
But in the motions, are you talking about listing the motions as written out completely?
Under old business, we just, it would be, and again, we can talk about that portion in the thing, but it could be what the emotion was, and, just get an update from Dr. Clefairy, as he has said he was doing now. We'll get back to you on that in 2 meetings or in a month or whatever we can tie it and we can see if we can work something out.
Okay. All in favor? Mr. Dakota?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just, because Ms. Neary will be on the phone with me in a minute, because it's not this week. It got pushed back a week. It's next week. It's on Wednesday, the 28th, and Saturday afternoon. So just wanted to make sure that gets out for proper information, goes out there, because I can't wait to go see her. It's going to be awesome. They do a great job.
You have the information. Mr. Lay?
Thank you, Your Honor. Superintendent also just said that he has the quarterly report already. Can I make the friendly amendment to to that? Is that couldn't you just use the quarterly report every meeting? Would that be suffice, Superintendent?
If I may, the quarterly report that we have, Minerva, my administrative assistant, you guys look at it every quarter. We look at it every week. She puts it on our meeting almost every week, at the latest every 2 weeks. We look at it when we try to update as much as we can. And I have really no problem sharing it with you every meeting. Instead of adding an old, I'm happy to bring that every meeting. It'll be an attachment, a regular attachment, just like we do with the figures that we added now as the student attendance in schools. We can make that just every meeting you get that report.
Would you accept that? Or
Yeah, that's fine. That's keeping us up to date and keeping it in front of us.
That's fine.
That's fine. Thank you.
All right, all in favor? Thank you. All right, next motion by Ms. Doherty, request the superintendent provide the committee with a report that breaks down the number of special education students, ELL, and homeless students by school, along with staffing ratios currently in place to meet those needs. Second, by Ms. Martin.
Thank you, Your Honor. I think the motion pretty much speaks for itself. I would like to give you a context for it. As we're moving forward and looking at our budgets, I think we've in the past had every school gets the same amount of money per student approach, and I think we're looking, at least for me, I want to look more specialized at what the needs are of the different schools, because I think that our populations are very, very different across the district, and that if we get a picture of what the makeup is of each school, we can better understand what their staffing needs might be.
Okay. All in favor? Any discussion? Mr. Hoy?
Yes, recently in the Lowell Sun, in the back of it for the legal notices, it's like when they repossess your home and all that stuff, I seen the superintendent's name in there. And I really didn't understand it. I know Jen McChrystal's here right now, but is this that CPR that you're talking about? Is this related
Yes,
to
that's
something like in
correct.
this motion?
That's a coordinated program review.
Okay, well, I'm for the motion anyways, because I think we need more money, obviously, but I think about a month ago, I went up and seen Jen McChrystal, and I said to her, what would you think if I asked for an audit on special ed? And she said, on the finances and stuff, and she said if I'm correct, and she can correct me, she said they already had an audit and everything's really good, Bob, in that subject. But she said if we were to do anything, we might look into programs, and I don't know what she meant by that, and why I have her here. I'd like to see if she can give me an answer what she meant by that.
Hey, no, I'm more than happy to be up here. Thank you for the opportunity. We were just actually audited last year by the state. They came in and looked at all of our financial records as we're related to our request for circuit breaker funds. And I have to say, Billy and Casey and Sula Busius, who helped us with that report, got accolades from the state. They were so impressed with our level of documentation of student services and then how we were doing all of our out-of-district funding and tuition, which was great. What I did say is we have all these sub-separate programs that you have all heard me talk about and you have funded and supported. And part of what we're required to do as a district, as part of our coordinated program review, is evaluate our programs and do an audit of, are we doing the right things? Can we do them better? Do we need more staff? Do we need to look at it differently? And over the past few years, we've been able to do some of those internally with our staff and look at them. But I'd love the opportunity, if we were going to have someone come in, to look at our deaf and hard of hearing program. We really need somebody who understands both sides of that issue, because there are very different communities. Some parents would like their children involved in the hearing community and choose to access cochlear implants. Other parents would like their children to access sign language and be part of the deaf community and culture. And so we need someone who can really look at what are we doing within Lowell Public Schools to support all of those families' choices. So I was suggesting, rather than looking at the financial aspect, which we know the state has come in and just looked at, let's be thoughtful about our programs and make sure we're really doing the best we possibly can. And sometimes we can do it ourselves. Sometimes we need experts depending on the population. Does that answer the question?
I just wanted Jackie to hear that, to be honest with you. But I appreciate it. I did absorb quite a bit of that, and thank you, that's all.
You're
Thank you.
welcome.
Thank you, Jim.
Right.
Any further discussion? All right, motion passes. Next motion by Mr. School Committee Person Nutter. Lowell School Committee work with Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum to explore creating remote learning programs or blizzard bags to be used after 5 snow days. Need a second? By Mr. Dakota?
I put this on Ms. Desmond because I figured Ms. Durkin's busy enough with other things. But it'll be obviously the administration. Just like every community, we've been hit with so many snow days, and we need to, I know Burlington does it, I know Framingham does it, I know other communities. I believe Kim Scott, when she was on the school committee, brought this up at one time a couple years ago, and at that time, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education wasn't really into this in giving approval. Since then, they have actually been much more receptive. So I just think with all the snow days, we don't want to find ourselves in the position of what Drake had to do of canceling some vacation days and things, so.
And that's happened all this. I believe the superintendent has some answers because the state is responding because everybody's asking the same question.
Thank you, Mr. Nutter. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Nutter, for your motion. But I did want to give you some feedback on that one. We had actually, before the motion was done, I know that Ms. Desmond was working with her team to look into the blizzard bag. And I know it will be no problem for her submitting a report even, right away in the next meeting, because she was already working on it. Some of the issues that we have with the blizzard bag is that most of the time it works really well when you already have that in place. So as soon as you know, say, tomorrow we're going to cancel, then you say tomorrow is the blizzard bag, you send it out. So we have to work we have requested information from the state as to whether we can do it retroactively. So that's they're talking to us about it. One of the issues, though, that we do have, when you have to have a 90% response. If you don't have a 90%, they will not count it. The other thing, too, if a child does not do the work, then it's not just a matter of marking their work as, not accepted or something. You'd have to mark them as absent. So that the blizzard bag, if not properly done and parents are not really involved heavily into it, it can come back, haunt us in the absenteeism rate. It can shoot it up. The state, we talked to them as of this morning. I was talking to them, and they gave us they're apparently looking in allowing us to make up the days by adding the time at the end of the day, which I think will be much easier to do because everything, the transport can be handled, everything can be handled. So they promised us an answer by this Friday, a final answer, whether they're going to allow us to do it or not, and what would be the condition, and we will include that in the report as well.
Thank you. Whatever we can do, because I know, I mean, we're up against June 30th as a timeline, and I wasn't thinking about this just this year, just, going forward, yes.
Mr. Hoy?
I just want to touch one thing. I talked to two different principals just to see what they felt about this, and they felt it would work in a town like, let's say, Lexington or Townsend, but in Lowell, it might have a problem. But both of them told me add time to the day, meaning like, I don't know, 30 minutes to the day for the rest of the year. And that was only two principals. They felt that they could work with that pretty easy. So I just wanted to say.
Thank you. I have some concerns about the blizzard bags. I'd want to know really more what the whole plan would be. Certainly it wouldn't be for this year. And I think my concerns are really similar to what Mr. Hoey said. In our community, with the number of English language learners, how many of our families have internet? We're expecting this for our first all the way up to 12th graders. I just think it sounds daunting, but I'm open to hearing what the administration thinks. I also would like to point out that if at all possible, if we can add time before MCAS, that's what I hate about adding the time at the end of June. By then, everybody's a little burnt out. Face it, our classrooms are really hot. Most of our schools aren't air conditioned. And it just, and obviously we can't control the weather. We're just trying to adapt to that situation. But if there was an opportunity to add time, to the days now, rather than at the end of the school year, I think it would be have so much more impact on our students' learning.
All in favor of the research for this? The motion passes, okay. The next motion, by Mr. Nutter. Lowell explore permanently changing Good Friday to an early release day rather than a no school day. Motion to second?
Second.
Mr. Hoey?
Again, a lot of communities, I mean, when you and I were kids, Mr. Mayor, we used to, engage in walkathons and go to, clean out the church and go to the afternoon activities, but not as many people participate anymore. And by doing it as an early release, as a lot of other communities have, it still would allow the families who want to participate and observe the holy day that opportunity. Plus, I know contractually, any staff who wanted to take a holy day off, they would be allowed to do that. May cause a little spike in the, substitutes needed that day, but we were always looking for days. It's just another way of, counting the days.
Superintendent?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've worked with communities, two different districts, one that had it off and one that didn't have it off. And I just want to be careful on one thing, is that our current contracts that we just negotiated, that employees are allowed to take their religious day. So Christianity is our major religion here among our employees. And my fear is that if it's an unknown to us, do we know how many people are going to take it? Because if say in a school, half of your staff decide to take it, where there is no way we're going to get the right subs. So we will be creating a further problem, even if we do it early release day, but if you don't have the adults in the morning to take care of the kids, it's still going to really be very difficult. I think I don't know what to tell you about this. I mean, I truly understand why the good intent behind this is to, I think if we do it, if we're looking at doing it this year only just to make up one of the snow days, I'm sure we can strike a deal with our teachers, and they would understand that come to school and do it. So this way you don't have to come an extra day at the end of the year. They probably support it. But if we're going to do this as a matter of fact for the rest, we'll have to look at how we may want to renegotiate this with the union with respect to the religious days. I worry a little bit about that.
I wouldn't suggest doing it this year. It's next week. I don't think that's fair to anyone.
It's a bit too late
at this point. But even if we take an informal survey of our staff, in teachers of how many would, you know, it's just, again, it's just a way of looking at preserving days, as many other communities have done.
Good. I think since we have the UTL here present, I'm sure they can help us doing a survey, and I'll ask LSAA to do the same, and we'll come back with the results.
Mr. Nadu, should we suggest to the superintendent that they look at as many alternatives similar to this? I mean, because I think we're going to be suffering from this type. We may have perfect year next year, and the following year miss 25 days, but we have to have an answer.
Yeah, we should look into anything that's possible. I mean, people may not like the idea of, instead of having an April and a February, just having
I mean,
one week
those
off
things,
in March.
because school systems are taking those days away, and it creates a problem. All right, Mr. Superintendent, thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Hoey?
Thank you. I'm Catholic, but I'm not a practicing Catholic. I only go to funerals. I don't go to church that much anymore. So it really wouldn't affect me personally, but I was having a cup of coffee with Dominic Lay, and I said, hey, Dominic, what's the most important day for Cambodian people? And he said to me, if I'm correct, he said April 14th. It's a New Year's Day, but this year it runs on a Saturday. But I said, what if we ever took that away from the Cambodian people? Dominic says, I won't get elected. Something like that. That's how important it is to Cambodian people. And Good Friday, I know it was, my grandmother's not here, but it was very important to her. And that's what I'm a little nervous about, that's it.
No.
But the ideas of looking for things, I think it's all good. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Ms. Doherty?
Sorry, I just want to ask one thing. If we're going to survey the staff, is there any chance we could ask them if they would be open to next week, taking Good Friday as a snow day? Is that, I realize it's coming quick, but if we're going to survey them anyway.
I think that's,
Mr. Georges, excuse me,
I think
Mr.
that's.
Georges, come forward.
It's time to do it. Could you do a survey that quickly, is what I'm saying?
I think that's tough on parents, Jackie, at this point, though. You know, more so parents, and no offense to Mr. Georges and his staff and the teachers, but I think for families, you know, it's tough with people are working and already have schedules, and a week before is tough.
If you want to take the heat from the parents, I can survey the teachers.
Good answer.
Good answer.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? Thank you. All right, the next motion by Ms. Martin, request the administration provide the Lowell School Committee with written recommendations at the April 4th, 2018 meeting to engage an outside firm to conduct a human resource compliance audit with the deadline of June 30th, 2018 for completion of said audit. A motion, support, Ms. Doherty, Ms. Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Really, I'm just looking for an opportunity for us to have the same way that we audit our revolving accounts and special ed and all these other areas within our district. You know, it's really a best business practice whenever you have a major change in a department, or when there are major changes in state law, to have an outside set of eyes come in to look at your files, look at the way that everything is being kind of processed. I think that, you know, having the opportunity to have an outside firm come in, look at make the comparisons of both our own policies here for the Lowell Public Schools, but also Mass state law would be extremely valuable for us as we're, moving forward to reconstitute this HR office, and would give us, great confidence moving forward. We have a lot of big HR issues going on right now, just in terms of the time of year with processing retirements and a lot of different things that if we don't get them right the first time, can be a huge issue in terms of having to, whether it's clawback or anything else. So I think that it's a good time for us I would like this to be as soon as possible. I did put the deadlines in. I think that would generous. And I'm hoping that we can, in a perfect world, would be able to get them done more quickly than that. But I think that it's information that we need to have, and that certainly the administration should want to have as they're moving forward with this process. Thank you.
Superintendent?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's an excellent motion. I strongly support it. I had a discussion with Ms. Martin about it. What I do want to include, in addition to it, is, if you recall, in my report last, well, some of you weren't here, but in December I had asked that it was my intent to have an audit of HR. What I would like to include, in addition, that it be just a compliance audit, because I think it's compliance. When you do just like we do, what Ms. McChrystal was talking about earlier, when the state comes in, they're interested in compliance. They're interested in your accounts. We're giving you money. Show us that you're spending it the way we want you to spend it. The compliance. But exactly I will do is ask you exactly what Ms. McChrystal was saying, is that she's looking at the content, the programs. What are we doing? Because the compliance means absolutely nothing to us unless it's accompanied with also looking at the systems that we have. Do we have optimized system? Do we have the right resources? Are we doing the right thing in this? And are we carrying this function of HR, the way to do that? So I'd like to include is one way or the other is either just call it just a human resource audit, and to include everything, not just compliance, or if you want to retain the word compliance, I'm okay with that, is to say human resource compliance and any other HR systems as well, because the weakness that we have, and I don't need anybody to audit to tell me that, I already know that, one of the biggest weaknesses that we have is our systems. In HR, they don't talk to payroll, the human resource is just very incompatible with some of the other things. So takes us a great deal of time to do the data entry, to get everything right, and it also opens up the human error every time you increase human interaction between systems. So I'd like this HR audit to include what our initial intent was to be, as well, including the audit of our systems, and not just a simple compliance audit.
I certainly would welcome a more comprehensive review of our HR systems. In my mind, the compliance audit is certainly part of that, so I wouldn't want it removed. I think that, again, just like a traditional audit, you'd have a letter of findings. Generally, that is when you get those recommendations for improving systems. So I think adding on is fine, but I do think that the idea of compliance is something that I am committed to, ensuring that that is part of the audit process. So I just want to be clear about that there is going to be an actual compliance file-by-file review, because I think that's going to be where, the mistakes happen, and when you have complicated systems that may not be functioning and that need to be taken a look at. Absolutely. The compliance piece of this is what can drive that. So I welcome additional information to come from these experts, but I do want to be very clear that I consider the compliance part of it critical. Thank you.
Mr. Hoey?
I like this motion a lot. I believe HR is an issue that's been troubling for quite a while. I believe the last time I remember this school system running so great with HR is when Dr. Flanagan had it. And since then, it's gone downhill. For what reasons, I don't know. I don't know if it's ed reform, but I believe it has to do with 3,100 jobs, and everybody wants their friend to get a job. And there's been a lot of fights about HR in the past 10 years that I've been watching. And I think the motion will fix a lot of things in HR, so I'm going to support the motion.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Okay. Motion passes. Next motion by School Committee Person Nutter, requests the superintendent supply explanation why, according to outside auditors Powers and Sullivan, during the 2016-2017 school year, approximately $807,000 of grant proceeds were turned back unused. Reports should include copies of each grant, what the total grant received was, what portion of the grant was spent, and why the remainder wasn't. Used along with the total dollars of each grant returned. Need a second? Second, Ms. Martin.
As you were aware, this came up at the city council meeting last night. We talked earlier today about the city manager cutting our budget by $2 million, and, you know, city council wanted to know why in the last 2 years we've turned back 1.3 million. I don't think people realize that, you know, we're very fortunate here in the city that we take in, and I think conservatively, I would say somewhere between 10 and 15. It may actually be closer to 19 from what the superintendent mentioned, in you know, grants funding that we have. I also know from talking to other people and pulling this off the Title I page that, you know, you get a Title I grant, and as long as you have, our year ends June 30th. The government year ends in September. So as long as we have 85% usually of a grant committed by the end of September for use, I believe, is their thing. A lot of that money is kind of turned right back to us. So just to kind of explain and give people a very clearer understanding, you know, there may be some grants that we received with the best of intentions to use, and we need to know why we didn't use them. And if some of these are these type of rollover grants, we need to explain, because when you just look at a report that has absolutely no response or nothing with that, it looks like a great deal of money. But when you're, again, talking about, you know, $15-19 million.
When you're looking at numbers,
right.
Can we allow the superintendent to?
Absolutely.
At this point, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We will get the report, because that's very simple to do. But I do want to say something that I hope people do understand. You know, I insist, and also in response to yesterday's city council, I want to make sure that people don't get this opinion that we are returning 807. We are not. We are not. First of all, the 807 for 16-17, that includes a small amount that is city, not us. This is the total city and school. That's number one. The number two, the remaining balance that is due to the school, the largest portion of it is balance that is returned to us. This is just a mechanism that works with the state. It goes away the 30th, it comes back, so it's not money that is abandoned on the table. There is an amount that is truly returned, but it's not, it's various tons and tons of, I mean, we have sometimes grants that, you know, a 5,000 grant and there's a $500 return. The reason that it is returned is that, and that happens a lot in SPED, it happens a lot in, a lot of these are SPED as well, is when they're given to us for a specific purpose, they also have very strict rules on what it is spent for. And when our people request grants, they always go by estimations. So sometimes they underestimate, and sometimes they overestimate. And if they overestimated, you're going to find a little amount left over. We would love to keep it, but the state or the federal, depends on the entity, would say absolutely not, because it can only be spent on certain things. And obviously, we have to remain legal, and we do that. So as much as we hate to return it, but sometimes we just can't. So this, when you see the report, when we'll give it to you, you see that the amount that is actually returned to the state is not 807 at all, but it is a much smaller amount than that. And when you look at the 19 million that we have, and because of this very strict guidelines that the grantors will have, you will understand why sometimes we have to do it. But it's a great motion, thank you.
And Mr. Mayor, can we make sure that after we get the report, you bring it to the city council? I know Councilor Mercier is very interested.
It's been done.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion on that? All in favor? Thank you. All right, next we have subcommittee report, Finance Subcommittee meeting, report of the meeting from March 21st, 2018 by Chairperson Nutter.
We met tonight at 5:30. We looked at the budget presentation of last year, realized that communication, both from the mayor and the school committee and the administration, could have been better, clearer. The process ended up being that the administration submitted a budget that wasn't approved by the school committee, but by doing so, they followed policy in our own school committee policy manual that allowed them to do just that. Meetings could have, should have been called, communication should have been clearer. The bottom line is we are waiting for the city to now return some additional funding to us, and then we will need, before June 30th, to take a vote to adjust the bottom line figure to include the $250,000 that was given to us by the city that was extra, along with the money we'll get in from school choice and E-rate returns, correct? And that all has to be voted on, and then we will ask you to bring that forward and have the council also change the bottom line so that when we do our audits at the end of the year, it doesn't look like we overspent the accounts. Right. In addition, Mr. Frisch will be bringing in approximately $610,000 in transfers that budget reductions were made in August, but those were never brought forward to be transferred in, so that will be done in the next few weeks. So again, the key thing that came out of all this, and from talking with DESE and the Department of Revenue, was we need to have better kind of direction and leadership from both the communication from both the mayor and chairman,
both entities.
You know, both entities, the school committee, but also the superintendent and the assistant superintendent of finance, right, so that we're not put in this position again.
Correct.
So I'd just like to submit that as a report of progress.
Any discussion, Mr. Hoey?
Yeah, I have to say this, Mayor. You weren't here when at the subcommittee, and I was kind of shocked thinking that we were about to fire our superintendent and Mr. Frisch. So I'm glad everybody came to their senses. We might have made a mistake. It sounded to me like the school committee made a mistake. But the superintendent is pretty good with state laws, and I'm glad that didn't happen tonight. And it was scary for me. But at the same time, that's all I want to say. Thank you.
No, there's a realization that the money was properly taken care of. So, all right. I need a second. By Ms. Doherty. Thank you. No, actually, I didn't, I need a motion to accept this as a report of progress. Hmm? That's true. We do it a little different in the city council. We'll accept this. Maybe that's another communication issue. All right, we're now to reports of the superintendent. We did 10-1 through 10-3. Next, 10-4 is day school update. Mr. Superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We do have Ms. Crystal here, so I'm just going to ask her to come up and give us that report. And I'll add a little bit more info at the end that I just got today. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and the members of the school committee. I really appreciate being up here. And I need to tell you, I am completely humbled and so grateful that you have given us an opportunity to create a day school to service our students. Currently, our day school is serving 34 students. All of those students, if we didn't have a day school, would be out of district. So the cost savings in our out-of-district budget is about $1.7 million for this year for the tuition that would have been spent to service these students. And the school, under the direction of Patty Clark and her amazing staff, the kids are making progress. We actually have at least one student who'll be returning to an in-district program next year. So we're very excited. The city councilor, Kennedy, and the city manager and his staff have been very, very gracious in trying to locate us a place in the city that we could build a day school that would have the appropriate facilities for us to grow. To have that happen, it may take a year, 2 years. We're not sure how long that happens. And I know, and we've been trying to just keep you up to date on our planning and our thinking and to continue that transparent work together. And we'd actually put this forward a a few meetings ago before some snowstorms. So we're a little bit closer in some of our gaining of information. At this point, we were able to put out an RFP working with the city that will be opened on April 2nd or April 3rd. And the goal of that was to put out something in or around the city, much closer than we currently are, that would have a 3-year lease that would allow us to grow, but at least for the first year, be the same exact rent or less than what we're paying now. And so as not to burden the system, but allow us to continue to service students. And our goal would be to add 2 more classes to be able to bring back more students and service them with an additional cost savings for the district. So that RFP will be opened, and hopefully we'll have some bids and things that we can consider and bring to you shortly. As a backup, we know that the Crest building was up for sale. We thought it was sold. It may be back open, but they would like us to, they've offered us a contingency of staying 1 more year if we need to access that. So we also have additional options if we need them going forward. So we just really wanted to update you all that we're continuing to work and plan and think and hopefully do it in a timely manner, that we're not at the last minute scrambling. We want to make sure we're being as thoughtful as possible. And the city's been very supportive in helping us do that.
Ms. Doherty?
Thank you. Just one quick question. So if we stay in Methuen for another year, will we be able to grow the program? Because you said you want to do 2 more classes.
Right.
Can Methuen support 2 more classrooms?
No, the Methuen site would have to maintain only the 8 classrooms we have. We wouldn't be able to have any more growth.
Superintendent?
Yes, I want to add some little piece of information with it. Methuen is not our favorite location mainly because we cannot expand there, and also because we're limited to 1 year. So initially, our decision criteria was that depending on what the city would tell us, because at some point, when we were talking to the city, there was talk about them possibly being able to pull it off, the new day school, to pull it off within 1 year's time, and with the summer and so forth. So we had set our criteria that if we can pull it off within 1 year, then Methuen becomes a better solution. So we don't have to move the children twice. They'll stay there, and then we go to our permanent place. However, if they cannot do it within 1 year, and it's longer than a year, then going to a new place for a full 3 year will be the desirable option. We just heard today from the city, from city officials, that they're not going to be able to pull it off in 1 year. It will be more like 2.5 years to do that. So I think pretty much the decision is made that we're going to have to wait for the bid to be open and try to select the best option that would allow us both cost-wise will be reasonable, but also allow us some expansion.
Ms. Doherty?
Just to follow up on that, if we find a place that's closer to home, we're going to save on transportation as well.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Ms. Nella?
Just a question on the current program. How has the feedback and response been from the parents? I mean, it's a day school, and I know having it in town, but it's a first-year program for us.
Yes, and so we've had great feedback from the parents. They've been reaching out that their students are doing things that they've never been able to do. Some things that we all take for granted, like holiday photos. These kids, they've practiced, they came all dressed up, and they were able to do that. We have kids that are using communication devices and are able to say something to their parents for the first time. So I really feel like with this amazing staff and the effort that everybody's put in, we're doing exactly what we said we could do. We could educate our kids in Lowell better and really have them make progress. And it's amazing to see what they are doing. And we've gotten great feedback from parents, and many parents that have identified to us, because Mrs. Clark's been going to meetings, people have been talking. If it's closer, I would love to send my child there, but I don't want them on the bus that long. And so for us, it's very important that we also honor any commitments that we've made to students and families, as well as save the district money and do what's right for kids. It's very exciting for all of us to be able to combine that.
All set. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome, thank you.
Okay, next, state and local aid for fiscal 2019. Mr. Superintendent?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You've all received the information that we shared with you. Again, we have a similar situation that we had last year, which is the state gave us the good news that they'll be raising, they're at least suggesting, it's not final yet, to raise the state side of it by a considerable amount. Unfortunately, the city is not in a position of doing that, and given the fact that they have higher charter school costs as well as higher transportation costs, which were predicted anyway from the contract, that the actual contribution that is given to us from the city is going to decrease in terms of net contribution that contributes to our budget is going to decrease by nearly $2.5 million. Again, I explained it last year, I'll re-explain it this year. I think one of the biggest issue that we have is the transportation. The transportation is not a school cost, directly a school cost. It's a school associated cost it's a city-borne cost. They count it towards school contribution, but it's not part of our budget. So when the transportation cost goes up and then we have to contribute to it from our own operating budget, it will decrease our operating budget available for the schools by that same amount. So that is really another part that hurts us, other than the charter schools going up. So at this point in time, we did write, the city manager wrote us a letter to explain what they're giving. I did respond to him, the need for him to really revisit this and for the city to revisit this, because $2.5 million is going to be a very serious cut for us that is going to hurt. There is no two way about it. There's just absolutely no two ways. So we have sent him a letter. We have not received yet a response. I suspect we're going to, just like it happened last year, probably a lot of things is going to unveil very late, depending on what the state and the Senate and the House and the governor will decide to do finally. But we are in anticipation of that, and because of the union contract that we have with all our labor groups, that we have to notify them by a certain time. So we're going to be looking at serious cuts, because there is no way we can cut $2.5 million without touching two positions. So we're going to be looking at suggested cuts in positions. It doesn't mean that they're going to all happen, but we have to be careful. We have to notify the unions about it, so that if we have to cut, hopefully we won't have to cut any, but if we do have to cut some of those, at least we would have complied with the contract. Because if we do not do that and wait to the last minute, we'll have a similar problem where do we cut? And then you have a very limited pool where to cut from. So these are tough times, so I guarantee you will all be having phone calls from about everybody that's going to see their job on the line. And the one advice that I give you all is, and I think message that you could relay to all is that hopefully we go for the worst, because you have to budget for the worst, but hopefully that the worst doesn't happen, and that we will have better news from the state and the city, and that we try to minimize the cuts. But one last word about the cuts. When we do present the cuts, my philosophy for the last 2 years, we've applied the same thing. We will always address the administrative cuts first, and then if we run out where to go with administrative, then we'll start looking at school-based cuts and teachers' cuts, which we'd like to leave at the very last.
Mr. Hoy?
Yes, thanks, Mayor. I know I was a person very critical of the manager back a year ago when we were talking about maintenance of effort and all that. But now that we're going to be changing over city manager pretty soon, I'm wondering, I know you sent the letter, I wonder if we should make a motion maybe that the school committee sends to the city manager, and hopefully it gets there after April 1st, and say, we need the money, please reconsider, that's all.
I think one of the things, I mean, the charter school rates have gone, have grown unbelievably, but the thing is, we really have to wait for the State House, for their reports. And the word is that it's going to be better than we expected at this particular time, so there'll be time for negotiation and all of this.
Just one more thing, if you don't mind.
But you're right, I mean,
I think
we have to do that.
I
yeah,
think,
fast.
is there a team still working on maintenance of effort, looking at indirect cost?
Yes, we are. The team is still
Well-
looking at that, and I think part of the problem is that, obviously, if the maintenance of effort, or then I'd like to call it more like the net school spending, is seen that the city is over the minimum, obviously they can do that. But we don't feel that, I mean, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day, it's semantics what it is. What really matters is to support the schools and the operating budget. We can't cut year after year, heavy cuts like this. Last year it was a huge cut that we took. It was the similar case. We had started out with a $3 million nearly cut, and we only got back $250,000. So it was a heavy cut we did last year, and this year is again another cut. And we really can't continue too far ahead like this without seriously affecting all the good things that you've been looking at, whether it's dropout rates, whether it's graduation, whether it's early childhood successes that we've been experiencing. I mean, all of these takes money, and our budget is made up for the largest part of it with salaries. And, and I know that, and people, I hear it all the time, comments of saying, well, Lowell School has, I remember 100 so administrators. That is not true. That's because the union that has those social workers and so forth happens to be the administrative union. We do not have hundreds of administrators, very far, far from that. We have school run by 2-3 adults as administrators, and that is way below the norm. Most schools of our size, middle schools and high schools, they will always have 2 assistant principals because of their size. We only have 1 assistant principal. So we really do not have enough administrators to cut. So we will cut administrators. It's going to hurt. It's going to affect the quality of schools. And unfortunately, if you go down to 2.5 million, you will see cuts very close to the classrooms. And you can't escape them. We don't like them, you don't like them, you're going to be upset, we're going to be upset, parents are going to be upset, but we don't like them. So all we can do is really hope for the best, that, as the mayor said, that we get better news from the state.
Okay, thanks.
Doherty?
I'm not willing to wait for the state. We did that last year, and the money didn't come through. We need to step up as a city and support the education of our children. As we discussed it during the Finance Subcommittee meeting, what percentage of money is coming from the state already? Is it 80%?
89, according to the Powers and
Okay.
Sullivan report, 89% comes in
and
Chapter 70.
We know the state is not giving enough as it is. The foundation budget was determined 25 years ago. It's outdated, it's inadequate. So the state itself, we can't count on, and they're not giving us enough. And for the city, I think they're contributing less cash-wise than they did 25 years ago. We used to mention the cuts, right? Did they give us $1 million less last year? More than $1 million less, and now it's another $2.5 million because transportation costs go up, because this is why people don't like charter schools, because it's on the backs of the traditional schools. We can't, as you said, we can't expect to have our dropout rate going down, our test scores going up, and the mental health of our children. We need supports. We, more than other districts, more than the suburban districts. And so we're going to have to start making our case now. We're going to start developing the case. Let's go back to the information that Mr. Frisch pulled, looking at other districts and how much they spend per pupil and how much we spend per pupil. Those Westons and, those expensive communities, or even an urban community like Cambridge that's spending $10,000, $14,000 more on their kids per pupil than we are, our kids have more challenges. So, we did this last year. We looked at the number. We tried to be optimistic. There's going to be more coming from the state. I'm not waiting for that this time. And I would really appreciate the support from the administration and getting our facts in order so that we can present to the city council why it is essential that we fund the schools. It's not just so we can be happy and clap about our test scores and our dropout rates. It's because it is essential to the future of this city, the education we provide our children. And we can't do it laying off our staff, and that's all we have to make the cuts, right? Where are we going to cut? From supplies? Well, we did that last year in desperation. Basically, we're going to be laying people off, and it's the exact opposite way that we need to be going. I'm looking at putting in more supports, and that's why I had that motion tonight. Let's look at each school and what their population is and what their challenges are and try to meet those needs. And we can't do that if we're constantly being cut. So I'm sorry, I don't mean to get on a soapbox, but I really think it's March. Let's get it in order now. We're not waiting for the state. We are going to be pressuring the city to come up and do their fair share.
Mr. Hoey.
Real quick, Mayor, thank you. I agree with every word you said, but what I still feel is I was very critical of the manager, but I know he's done a lot of good also. But right now I'm thinking we still have hope. We're getting a new city manager that will try to do the right thing, I believe, and I just don't want to give up hope yet. I think she's hearing us right now, and hopefully she looks, and maybe she'll have time to look at that 2.5 or 2.6 million and maybe save it for us. So I want to try not to be so critical of them every time, but we are tenants of the of the city. We pay rent to be in their schools, upwards close to $50 million. And if it wasn't for Salah Kafawi opening up his mouth about indirect cost, I wouldn't have jumped on it, and then the rest of us did. And I just want to hope that Eileen's listening to us and maybe helps us with that 2.5 million, that's all. And thanks, Mayor, for letting me have my time.
Mr. Nutter.
A couple things. Mr. Mayor, in January, we voted as a school committee, 7-0, requesting that the manager, when he presents the budget, takes transportation and puts it as a separate line item. We asked you to bring that forward. I hadn't seen that on the council agenda yet, but people really need to know that, and again, if you look at the report that Powers and Sullivan put out yesterday, as I stated, 89% of the funding that we get to run the Lowell school system comes from the state. When you look at the amount of actual cash that the city supplies to the school system, take out the almost $8 million in transportation, and we're getting roughly $8 to $9 million in cash from the city to support the schools. I agree with Jackie Doherty. That's less than what we used to get before. And it should not be allowed. Unfortunately, charter schools are a reality, and those are Lowell kids. They're formerly our students, but they're still our kids. Another part of the problem is the state not fulfilling their obligation to fully fund another line item that they have given us. I mean, they told us when they started the charter schools that they would reimburse us at a much higher rate than they're reimbursing us. The same thing they've done with the circuit breaker account to us. They're not fully funding that. So, we do need to, I agree with Ms. Doherty, we do need to appeal to all our councilors. We need to appeal to our state representatives and to everyone who's running for the state senate once that happens, that, we need the state to start, Charlie Baker's done a great overall job, but he has been such a supporter of charter schools and vocational education at the expense of the public education that it is horrible. Our kids are getting let down by our state and our city. And, again, I know if some of the public will turn around and say, well, your salaries are high, you created different administrative positions. If you look at the big picture, we're still running a pretty lean organization here compared to other school districts. As far as administrators and salaries go, we're not in the highest level whatsoever. We've looked at all that. And as someone who's just joined this committee, I've looked at it for the last few years. And until you actually get in and look at some of the realities, you get a whole different perspective. As I've gotten my eyes open in the last 3 months since I've been elected, looking at this stuff. So I agree with Ms. Doherty. We need to start lobbying now. We need to at least be level funded. You know, the amount of money that the city has to give us in net school spending increased by $1 million. And yet the manager's turning around and cutting us 2.5. I mean, level fund us and take the transportation. When Ed Reform came out, they didn't include transportation because transportation was separately funded. There used to be around a 70 to 80% reimbursement for transportation. When things get bad...
It was actually fully funded originally.
Originally, but then it dropped down, and then it dropped down to nothing after the state just doesn't do that anymore. And that's hurting the communities. Well, it's certainly hurting us. So I agree with Ms. Doherty. We need to advocate as much as possible to at least get level funded and get transportation broken up. Last year, there was a lot of talk about high school transportation, and we can afford to do this, we should look at this. Well, those councilors who supported that should support us now and take transportation and put it separately. Thank you.
I hear you. Okay, when you talk about transportation, you're right. When the state first came out with it, it was fully funded, so it didn't matter. But what's been the choices, it's either on the city side or the school department side. Either way, it's been one formula that we'll say doesn't favor the school system, okay? That I'll agree with you on that. But let me tell you what I've been trying to do, okay? Last night I made a motion on safety, school safety, because the thing is, what's been going on really has affected me, especially what happened in Florida. And I know what can happen in these schools. And I know the effort that everybody here has put on it. But I said I'd like to have the Subcommittee on School Safety meet with the Subcommittee on Student Services to talk about making sure we design a safety program for the Lowell school children. But what I basically said was that I know you've had reports, you've had studies made of what has to be done, but I made a statement. I said, a simple thing is to lock every door in every classroom. And I said, I would bet you at least 50% of the doors in the Lowell school system don't lock. Let's say 30% don't lock. I mean, so we can't talk, if we're talking about safety, we can't even lock school doors. That's an issue. So I want this subcommittee to work together with the city and the school department to come up with what's the budget necessary to spend, and like we do with the police department, come up with a budget that would allow the school department to be able to do its job. The next aspect of what I'd like to see is the subcommittee on education, okay, and I'm just not sure, maybe it's still the subcommittee on student services meet to talk about the needs of the school department and the needs of the city. And I think out of that, Ms. Doherty, you could probably start having your chance to speak directly to the city council as opposed to coming before the city council one night to make a pitch. Am I correct? I mean, that's the most difficult thing to do. Mr. Dakota?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think
some things I'm trying to do make direct contact. So subcommittees, most work is really done in subcommittees that's appropriate. I mean, in the school system or the city can work out well with it. But I think if we can get some cool heads to come together and talk about, look, realistically, this is what we have to do. I think we haven't really had a discussion like that. And you don't do it making a presentation one night. Mr. Dakota, I'm sorry.
Thank you again. I think your estimate of 50% is on the low side. I think that
Yeah.
number is going to be considerably higher as to how many doors can actually be locked in any of our schools, even the newer ones. I think a lot of those doors are just...
But you know my point. I mean,
exactly.
We're talking about safety, and one of the most basic things in safety is lock the doors. You know, and if we're not paying for that, I mean, does that help? I mean, I'll take any other direction from the school committee to bring this information back to the City Council. Mr. Superintendent?
Yes, may I suggest if one of you could make a motion that we call a subcommittee, I think the city has a subcommittee as well for finance, that maybe we can get them with our finance subcommittee to
Both
to
finance,
work together, to get the joint finance committee so we can pull them. I need a motion to be able to do that.
I will make the motion that the school finance subcommittee meet with the city council finance subcommittee.
Second? Mr. Dakota? Thank you. Perfect.
Thank you.
But I would still want to include the education subcommittee along with, because the thing is, there's two issues. Direct talk about finance, but also the issue of talking about programs. And they'll get even more information. That was coming next, but I think it's a very good idea. Ms. Doherty?
Wouldn't your issue about locking doors, wouldn't that fall under facilities?
Yeah. Well,
So a
but
facilities
the thing is,
joint
no.
meeting, I'd love to have a joint
I
facilities.
understand facilities, but I'm talking sheer safety. So the thing is, when, Chief Taylor comes in and states one of the main issues and guarantees for school safety is doors must be able to lock, this must be able to happen. So it's not facilities, I mean.
Oh, I see,
it's
very focused
safety.
on safety.
That's it. And that's the reason why you're doing it. It's not that the lock is broken, it's because it has to be done or it should be done. And I think we can get, further along with that. I'm sorry. Okay, next, we have,
Thank you.
thank you. Enrollment figures?
Yeah, those are just the figures that we give unless you have questions, we don't, we just present them to you every time.
Okay. Response to Mr. Dakota's motion?
Yeah, very, very quickly, this is in response to Mr. Dakota's motion to try to get a centralized place where we have all the events that are happening in all the schools. I asked the webmaster to take care of it, and he took care of it the next morning. He put a page together, a link on the main page, so that you can go directly to this one page that gives you all of them. The ultimate goal is to really try to pull everything together. It is really very, we're still looking at a solution, but the current solutions in our website is really not feasible to put everything in one calendar. It's going to be so overblown that it's really hard to read it. So he did the next best thing, which is get a link so that it's easy to access. You go to that link, it takes you to a page, and that page has all these schools calendars listed. So if you're interested in any particular one, to do it. We'll keep on looking. I instructed them to keep on looking if there is a solution that will be able to pull all of them together and still be neat and clear to read. But at least we have this temporary solution for now.
I did. I went on, I navigated through it and found a lot of places. And you might indicate that Ms. Neary's production got changed on that calendar. It's got to get changed.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Response to Ms. Martin's motion regarding the idea camp?
Yes. I'm going to ask Ms. Desmond, who prepared, I think, some things for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Kofawi. Attached in the agenda was a update on the work that we are doing to try to come up with different alternatives for how we can offer Idea Camp courses in a cost-effective way and to more students. What we have done is Martha Cohn, who is our coordinator for science and social studies, Deputy Durkin, Carolyn Rocheleau, coordinator for after-school and summer school programming, and myself have met several times. We've identified several courses that are able to be integrated into our summer school sites so that more of our students can participate in these courses without having to worry about transportation or worry about tuition costs. And then we would like to simultaneously look to see how we can run a similar Idea Camp program as we have in the past at less cost. And the reasoning for that is because when it in its inception, it was grant funded. And the idea was that we would be able to provide tuition costs that would help to create a self-sustaining program. Unfortunately, over time, the costs have gone up for supplies and materials, and the grant funding has ended that originally funded this program. We have been actively seeking other sources, but we have not been able to secure funding. So to run the program as we have done in the past would cost somewhere around an estimated $82,000, and then hopefully with we have a donation and then hopefully potential tuition would bring it down to somewhere around $42,000 as is, and that would have to be a 2018 budget cost. And again, that would only be if we received the tuition that we would hope to receive. That would be for the program as it was originally, so the program as it ran last year. So that is why we came together as a team to look to see what other alternatives we could put together to try to lower those costs, but also be able to provide the same programming. And as I said, last year when we looked at it, transportation was an obstacle for students, and tuition costs are an obstacle for students as well. So we're trying to look at multiple alternatives.
Ms. Martin?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. So just a few quick questions. So how many summer school programs how many schools will be hosting summer school this year?
I don't know if I want, do I want to defer to Deputy Durkin on that? I mean, the two summer schools that we were looking at specifically are middle school, because Idea Camp has always been targeted for middle school students. There will be a program at the Robinson and the Stocklosa, but the summer school programming is handled through Carolyn Rocheleau, who works in the Student Support Services Department.
So it is those two schools currently that we have 21st century programs at.
And how many students do we anticipate being in those two summer school programs?
So it's about 100 students that participate in summer school at each school.
So 200?
Yes.
Okay. So with those 200, my understanding has always been that those are students who are basically and working to make up, whether it's specific content area or, you know, they're students who are getting an additional support to their education.
So this is not summer school to make up classwork. This is 21st century programming. So these are our grant funds that fund innovative programming for students. It is designed to target some more at-risk students, but we can offer both Carolyn Rocheleau and Martha Cohen looked at the programming, and they felt that the ones that were listed could be offered as part of the two 21st century programs that are in place already.
So that all 200 kids would be able to take part in all of these programs?
Not necessarily. It would, students have an option to select which programs they participate in.
And the timing for summer school, are they going 4 days a week? Is the 21st century a 4-day-a-week program?
Correct.
And
They actually go 2 days, 2 and 2.
So it's a 2-day-a-week program. And to get selected to be in it, what do students have to do?
They just sign up for it, and we normally don't deny a student access.
Okay. I think if we could incorporate this into our 21st century, that would be great. I think that the Idea Camp was conceived of as a different thing, and I think that this is, you know, if it's possible to provide this opportunity for more kids, I would always support that. But I think we've given up on something that was fairly unique about our district. And I think it cheapens us that we're not able to maintain this program. So I just think that when we create these innovative programs, it's a shame that we're not able to maintain it. And I appreciate this report, which indicates that there is going to be an opportunity to expand it. I think that's a big challenge. That's a big challenge to take what was serving 30 kids and suddenly we're serving 200. That seems like a big stretch. And it's not going to cost us anything. That the $42,000 that we would have spent, now we don't need to spend that because 21st Century funds are going to fund that. So I just think that it will be interesting to see, and I'll certainly be paying attention as we move forward. I know I don't have the support of this committee to support maintaining Idea Camp, so I won't waste our time, but I think it's an unfortunate loss for our district.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to clarify that there will be some additional costs that will, for materials and supplies that both Carolyn Rocheleau and Martha Cohen are trying to determine now, but they can use the funding from 21st Century to hire the staff for the programs.
Further discussion? Ms. Doherty?
I just had another question. So it's only 30 kids who participated in the Idea Camp program? Well, because it doesn't say here. You mentioned 30. How many? Well, let's look at what we spent last year. We contributed $32,000 for the programming last year. How many students participated?
So the structure of Idea Camp is it's 3 individual weeks, and during those 3 weeks, there's certain courses that are offered. And there is a maximum of 20 that are allowed to enroll in courses. Those courses weren't always at the maximum. Some courses during certain years ran, some did not, depending on the enrollment numbers.
So do you know how many students took advantage of it for $32,000 last summer?
So I believe that we ran 11 sessions, and that there were, I think, 200 students that totaled all the enrollment over the 3 weeks, but that doesn't necessarily, a student may be counted more than once in that number, because you may take robotics 1 week, you may take C-Perch another week, because you're signing up for a course, a 1-week course, essentially.
So it was pretty much 200 students. It might have been some repeat students. And how did those students get into that program?
You just register. You register. There's a tuition charge. There's a tuition charge for students who are Lowell students, and then there's a tuition charge for students who are not Lowell students. So not all students necessarily are Lowell students, because this program wanted to mimic something that was very similar to what was offered at one time at UMass Lowell.
Yes.
And it's a
fabulous program at
right.
UMass
It's a
Lowell.
fabulous program, and so again, there's also some students who want to take it, were allowed to take it tuition-free, because we offered scholarship so that no student was turned away. So last year of the enrollments, I believe there were 100 scholarships that were allowed.
So that 100 scholarships was included in the $32,000 cost from last year. See, to me, it doesn't seem like that much money for a program that, I mean, then it goes back to that whole equity thing. You know, because we're Lowell, we're not Weston, and not all our families, I mean, even in Lowell, my son got to go to the program when it was at UMass Lowell. I paid for it because I could come up with a couple of $100 for him to have this great experience for a week or 2 in the summer. I agree with Ms. Martin. I think this is a real loss, and I'm not ready to give up on it. Let's see what you guys can come up with for a plan. But, you know, let's talk about it again. It just, I don't know.
Ms. Martin?
Only to continue on Ms. Doherty's idea. I mean, the concept of this really was that there are exceptional learning opportunities in the Lowell Public Schools, that we have exceptional staff, that we recognize that we have exceptional students, and that we want to be seen as a place for excellence in terms of our innovation, and STEM was certainly an area where we wanted to shine. And I mean, this whole concept came out of a renewed emphasis on STEM. From the very early conversations, we were talking about how we were going to take the ideas and the project kind of focus and the science-driven activities that happened at Idea Camp and infuse our entire district with them. That this was going to be the pinnacle of what we offer, and then that was going to give us the inspiration to then have this driven through all of our schools, that every student was going to have the opportunity to have this exceptional experience because we had this almost incubator. I mean, let's go a venture capital model, that we had this incubator where exciting things could happen that could then be part of our full district. I think, again, we do ourselves and we do our students and our families a disservice if we give up on being exceptional.
Any further discussion? Thank you. All right, next is the Knowledge Bowl 2018, Mr. Superintendent.
Ms. Desmond, you have some information on the Knowledge Bowl?
This is just an update of the Knowledge Bowl from Carolyn Rochelot, who oversees the program. At this point, we've had a lot of snow days and a lot of cancellations of our forum here, and within the Knowledge Bowl, we've had to extend the date. So this is really an update to the document, and you'll see that the final round is this Thursday. So if anybody is interested in attending, the final round is at the Butler School this Thursday at 5:30 p.m.
Name the schools.
Thank you. Yeah.
3 schools.
All set? All right, the response to Mr. Nutter's motion of 2/28/18 regarding safety measures in place at all Lowell schools. Superintendent?
Yes, I think this is the motion that we had to withdraw because we had invited initially the superintendent of police, and then he got delayed, and now I think it was withdrawn in favor of having a joint committee with the city council and the school committee, and then he will be coming there and.
But that will be a complete picture of.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's acceptable, that's fine.
Okay, thank you. Next is breakfast and lunch participation.
This is information that we provide each month. As you can see, it's listed for breakfast and lunch. Totals, 70% participation overall for breakfast for all the schools, and lunch is at 80%.
Any discussion? Okay. All right, I need a motion to accept the reports of the superintendent 10-1 through 10-11 as reports of progress. Motion by Ms. Doherty and seconded by Mr. Dakota. And that also included the MSBA because that's a report in progress. Okay. Next is home education. A motion to approve a home education program. Mr. Superintendent, any discussion on that?
On the home education? No, it's
Okay.
a regular item that we present, yeah.
Okay, I need a motion to accept. Mr. Dakota and seconded by Mr. Hoey. Thank you. Roll call?
Mr. Nutter?
Yes.
Mayor Samaras?
Yes.
Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Hoey?
Yes.
Mr. Lay?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
Now we
Mr.
have-
Mayor?
Yes.
Just a question. I thought that we needed to vote tonight on the MSBA changing of the educational plan. We did not, it's not a report of progress, it's a vote to accept the changes that were made. Correct?
All right. Actually, I was thinking of, what we're doing on the council. Okay, we'll have a vote. Roll call for that.
So motion to accept by Mr. Nutter.
Accept. And second by Ms. Martin. Roll call.
Mr. Nutter?
Yes.
Mayor Samaras?
Yes.
Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Hoey?
Yes.
Mr. Lay?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
7 yeas approved.
You're correct, for the curriculum part of it. Okay, thank you. New business, second reading, vote on the school assignment policy. Any discussion on that? Superintendent?
I think that this is the second reading. We had discussion before. If you have any questions, I don't see any public or anything for that comment, so we would ask you to take a vote to
All right.
please accept it.
Motion to approve the school assignment policy by Mr. Hoey, seconded by Mr. Nutter. Roll call.
Mr. Nutter?
Yes.
Mayor Samaras?
Yes.
Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Hoey?
Yes.
Mr. Lay?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
7 yeas approved.
Okay. Budget transfer, motion to approve the budget transfer. Need a motion? Aye. Mr. Dakota, seconded by Mr. Hoey. Roll call.
Mr. Nutter?
Yes.
Mayor Samaras?
Yes.
Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Hoey?
Yes.
Mr. Lay?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
7 yeas approved.
All right, I need a motion to take and approve all 7 conferences together. I need a motion to accept by Mr. Nutter, seconded by Ms. Doherty. Roll call.
Mr. Nutter?
Yes.
Mayor Samaras?
Yes.
Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Hoey?
Yes.
Mr. Lay?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
7 yeas approved.
All right, we have UTL donating sick days to Laura Lannon. I need a motion to approve UTL donated sick days
So moved.
by Mr. Hoey, seconded by Mr. Dakota. Roll call.
Mr. Nutter?
Yes.
Mayor Samaras?
Yes.
Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Hoey?
Yes.
Mr. Lay?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
7 yeas approved.
All right, I think Mr. Nutters is probably about 12 inches of snow out there, so I need a motion to adjourn.
There is no snow yet. I was just checking, I was just asked to check the radar. She's still hoping for delay in the morning.
It would be greatly appreciated.
I'm just,
So motion to adjourn.
I was just told, so. Seconded by Mr. Hoey.